let's, I've got 7. Let's call this public hearing on ordinance 2013-12, proposed amendment to chapter 112, 2013-4, proposed amendment to chapter 112 entitled zoning. This is basically a town council public hearing. If anybody wants to tell the council what they think, what they like, what they don't like, what their thoughts are on that specific item, that's what we're here for. Come on up to the podium. State law requires us to have a public hearing on these things, and that's what we're doing. Ed, when you come to the podium, identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Irvin Martin. I live in 703 North Warfield Drive. My dad and I have operated a business in Mount Airy for 57 years on Watersville Road, and that's why I have concerns about Watersville Road, but that's not what we're here for. I would like to make a couple of general comments. This town is not a quaint town anymore. Being quaint does not make a town historical. From Prospect to the just past Hood Street, I remember 24 businesses or buildings that are no longer in existence. So holding on to history is something Mount Airy could do better. Government does not make community. People that care and share with each other make community. The idea that I have my stake in this town, I don't want anyone bothering me, doesn't make for good community. Number 3, personal ideas, including elected people, may not be the best for our town. Dialogue and sharing ideas with openness for all is beneficial. Number 4, promises made, whether in writing or verbal, are promises to be kept. In reference to this document that I have right here, I believe it is beneficial for all. A place I think of is 1010 South Main Street. When each of you go past that building, you probably don't see what I see. I see new Chevys and Cadillacs sitting in the display windows. One of my father's employees bought a new Chevy there. My father and I have worked for every occupant except Mr. Warfield. I see truck bodies for radar equipment for the military. I see harvester silo materials, trucks, tractor and trailers, cranes, and employees' vehicles. Then I see Potomac Edison appliance display room, bucket and boom trucks, and a yard of transformers, poles, and miscellaneous equipment. I see Russ Dennis, kitchen displays and countertop manufacturing. Dennis Kitchens installed as high as 8 kitchens a day. Mr. Dennis and all of the other people gave Mount Airy and surrounding area residents employment. Last, I see the unique truss system for the rounded roof. Does anyone else see what I see when you go past that building? To change the use of that building would just be another history gone, past, and forgotten. This would be like the 24 businesses and buildings in downtown Mount Airy, forever gone, hopefully not all forgotten. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Rick Blatchford from Nottingham.
Evening, Rick.
All this isn't a speech, so don't get worried. I'm going to start off sort of extemporaneously, and then I'm going to do some reading to you. Proposed ordinance 2013-4. This is the third shot to make this business, make an exemption for this business. The first 2 were clearly alone for this business. This time around, a search was done to find 9 other businesses that might be impacted by this ordinance. I did some asking to the people involved, and I was told that of the 9, total of 10 listed, only 1 has asked for any help. There's been no request for any others or any need shown by any of the others. I'm not an expert in architecture and certainly not in history, but when I got the list of the 10 properties, I took the time, not that I don't have anything but time, but I took the time to drive around the town and I visited each of the 10 properties. To my mind, none are remarkable, with the possible exception of St. James Church and the Flatiron Building. One's a garage. So, speaking as bluntly as I'm prone to do, I look at the list of 10 as being a smokescreen and a warm and fuzzy feeling to say this isn't just for one business. You could prove to me that it isn't for one business if you would pass the ordinance exempting 1010 from it. That would show me that it wasn't for 1010, but that's not going to happen. We've already talked about the fact, or I have, that you should not alter town code to benefit one business. Okay? Said and done. I also think you shouldn't alter town code to change existing code unless the existing code has been found faulty. In all the discussions that have been had, I have heard no one say anything about what's wrong with the existing code, but they want to change it. Let's talk about the code as it's written. I'm not a great reader of law, but I did read most of it, and there are things in it that concern me. On the proposed ordinance 2013-4, in section 12-6A and D, it mentions, quote, expansions of non-conforming use, unquote. Think about that.
Sorry, Rich, can you go back?
It's section 112-6A and D, I don't know what page it is.
Page 3 of 9.
Three of nine.
I'm sorry, I missed it again.
It uses the terms expansions of non-conforming use, quote unquote. What's that mean? That's going to get, they're going to grow in a non-conforming use? And, quote, substitutions of non-conforming use,
Rich,
unquote.
are we in paragraph A?
112-6A, this is quoted in both A and D.
Okay, I'm just making sure that I'm where you're at.
Okay.
So that I'm,
Page 3 and 9.
I just wrote the sections, I didn't
A
put
and
the
D
page.
both do use that language,
They both
non-conforming.
use the same language.
okay.
To me, this seems excessively vague and possibly dangerous. It seems to indicate that an expired non-conforming use can be renewed and then increased in size. Again, it says expansion of a non-conforming use. Those words are in the code, or the proposed. Additionally, it seems that the non-conforming use could be changed to something else other than the existing non-conforming use if it's talking about substitutions of non-conforming use. That's the way I read it. Again, to me, this is extremely vague, and vague language in code can be dangerous. Now I'll talk about section 112-6, paragraph G. This section addresses the uses, quote, that would, now this really bothers me, that would constitute the same or greater use with the same or greater impact upon the community, unquote. Does that mean that if there's a business now that's impacting the neighbors, that they could expand it to impact them even more? But a same or greater use with a same or greater impact. I find that bothersome. Again, this would seem to permit the expired non-conforming use to expand and even create greater impact on the community. I think this is also kind of vague and is in favor of the owner. This would appear to allow the possibility of using property as up to increasing it, maybe a heavy industrial site. Next, another two sections, section 112-6G1.
Wait, can you slow down just a second when you get there?
112-6G1. It's also in the later section 112-6.1B1. Same words appear in both. Suggests that the Historical Society be involved in making a decision in this process. This group, the Historical Society, is not an arm of the town government of Mount Airy. Its members are neither elected nor appointed. It would seem that their qualifications to be involved in such decisions might be questionable. Finally, this unofficial group would simply be adding another layer to the approval process, stacking up more red tape to be cut through. My last part. This is found in section 12-6G4. The same verbiage appears in 12-6.1B4. This one really bothers me. It seems to me that the new the proposed ordinance will allow excessive violations, at least what appear to me to be excessive. It would permit, quote, "no more than 3 valid complaints within a period of 1 calendar year," with no accumulation. So bottom line is, this code would allow a business to have 3 violations a year forever. In 12 years, that's 36 violations. And it can just keep stacking up. It says 3 per year with no cumulative total, so that means forever. To my words, my understanding. So, my question was, can you say carte blanche? 3 violations a year is kind of ridiculous for a business in town. They keep stacking them up, 3 a year, and you're going to let them continue to operate. Okay, I have one more thing to say, or a couple more, I guess. If you change the code to benefit one business, as I contend this is, you will be setting a precedent. And if you're going to set a precedent, what are you going to say to the next one that has a problem because they didn't do their homework when they bought a property and they want an exception and they want somebody to write a new code? You did it before, can you do it again? Lastly, this thought occurred to me late this afternoon, and some of you, I hope it'll ring a bell to, because I've heard the same verbiage from this table. You look at the way it's written and you think, well, it ultimately depends on the council, and the council will have to be, in the end, the final judgment. Well, I want to remind you all of an argument that I heard from this table not that long ago with regard to the Ethics Commission and the new state-mandated ethics code. Some of you were concerned about what would happen depending upon who is serving on the Ethics Commission at the time. And I'm concerned about what would happen with this ordinance depending on who is sitting at this table down the road. And the thought that came to me this afternoon was that we had a council not that long ago, probably everyone in this room will remember, who took a vote to do something that I don't remember. 2/3 or 3/4 of the town were clearly against. It was called Zeltman. And they passed it anyway. And due to the leadership of someone sitting in this room, the town's voice was heard. And the council who went the wrong direction was overridden. So this proposed ordinance bothers me, not so much with the people who are sitting here tonight, but who might be sitting here in the future, which one of you, I'm almost quoting verbatim, what will it be? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Bill McCullough, Twilight Terrace Court, also a member of the Economic Development Commission. We have talked in the past about being able to support business in Mount Airy. And it seems to us that if we have a facility that's available for business, we should be encouraging business to go into that facility. In particular, people have been referencing 1010 South Main Street. They came to us, asked us for what we could do to help. Our comment back to the people who have 1010 was go to the Planning Commission, see if you can work out something that will be able to satisfy you and the town. As indicated before, there have been several attempts at this. This ordinance is the latest attempt at helping out. I don't understand all the language in the ordinance. I'll be perfectly frank with you. But I believe that the ordinance is geared to be able to, for unique circumstances, i.e. a building that was built in 1935, for which there was no real zoning at the time, should be able to be considered in today's environment, particularly when there are circumstances out there like a weak financial market that could preclude meeting certain criteria. Now, I don't know that that happened in this case. I haven't gone into details on that. But something like that should be a mitigating circumstance, should be considered within an ordinance like this. So from that standpoint, we support the efforts that are going on to look at how do you manage business opportunities, business facilities today, and getting back to your point, in the future. We don't know what the future of business will be for Mount Airy, or even for all of us in the future. It's going to be less brick and mortar. It may be more fiber or some kind of communication device. But we need the flexibility to be able to have an opportunity to be able to talk about that at the time it comes up. So we basically would support something like this ordinance right now to help with those that are unique businesses for Mount Airy and that make Mount Airy in part a unique community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
Right glasses on. A lot of us know how that is. My name is Tom Neff. I live at 1110 South Main Street. Actually, I've been up here, this is the third time on this, and I don't think I've ever pointed out, but my house is at the bottom left on the quilt there. I had to get that commercial in. Anyway, it was interesting. This gentleman, and I don't know you, and which is too bad because I think we're very close neighbors, is to go over what exactly I remember. And I want to take you there. It's short, and I'll talk quickly. I remember and saw B&O steam engines going through Mount Airy. I remember 2 mills in Mount Airy that have since gone. My grandfather had one of them. I remember Friday nights drawings right across the street, big town event. I remember 2 grocery stores. I think one was next door and one was just across the street. 4. Thank you. I remember 4 now. I remember a shoe store just down here where Ralph Buckman worked. You went in, you stuck your feet, and I think you got radiated, but you could look down and you could see your bones. Fluoroscope, thank you. That was pretty cool. I remember a picture of my grandfather. It's now out at the Mount Airy Inn playing baseball when he was younger. I also remember Warfield Chevrolet Garage that also sold farm haul tractors. I could tell you I used to go down there on weekends with another person, and we'd start them up and back, forward and back, but that was when I was young and foolish. I remember Mount Airy High School and elementary all in one place. What I see now, I see Warfield Chevrolet buildings, signs right up there. I see many new people moving to a small town, trying to keep it small, but you moved in. It's not keeping it small. I see 3 houses on South Main Street across from me that don't fit in that architecture, but they were allowed. Please don't destroy my memories by not allowing Warfield Chevrolet Garage to stay the way it is. You're messing with my memories. 20 years from now, maybe I won't be around, bring it up again, but please don't do it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
My name is Phyllis Reed. I live at 101 Fairwood Lane, and I'm adjacent property, the property behind Dennis Kitchen and Bath. And I'm sorry, Tom, my memories are quite different than yours are. As you are aware, my experience with having a commercial property in a residential neighborhood has not been good for me. Problems with stormwater drainage, asbestos, and petroleum contamination were all created by allowing a commercial business in a residential neighborhood at 1010 South Main Street. They are all remnants of Dennis Kitchen and Bath. These items are the responsibility of the owner and transferred to the new owner when the property was sold. These items had to be disclosed to the property owner during the sale. However, these problems were not disclosed to purchasers of adjoining properties. Therefore, adjoining property owners are powerless and at the mercy of the commercial property owner to correct the problem. This has been my experience with 1010 South Main Street, and none of the mentioned problems have ever been corrected by any owner. I ask that the lingering issues of past commercial properties be addressed and corrected before allowing application for new businesses in order to protect adjoining property owners. New business will only add insult to injury if the past problems are not corrected. All business owners should be in complete compliance with all local, state, and federal requirements before approval for business. I realize that this ordinance affects many properties. I ask that you to revisit the Planning Commission's comments and recommendations of last year's text amendment to 1010 South Main Street. It clearly states the negative impact on the community. These concerns could easily be applied to any property covered in the new ordinance and seem to go against the master plan's desire to protect the integrity and harmony of existing residential neighborhoods. It has been my experience, and I still feel very strongly, that a commercial business is not compatible or complementary in a residential setting. As you consider this ordinance, I ask that you please be mindful not only of the immediate impact on the neighborhoods, but also of the implications and problems which could arise in the future. The future of our property lies in your hands. It is the citizens, and especially immediate neighbors, who will be most affected by your decision. I ask that you learn from my misfortunes so that other properties will not suffer the same issues as I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thanks. Is there anybody else?
Hello, my name's Keith Zerbaugh. I live directly across from the 1010. I live at 1009 South Main Street. We purchased the house here in Mount Airy because it was a nice old historical home. I believe the gentleman, Tom, was it, that mentioned the 3 new houses that went up right next to us. That was, you know, a little, I don't know, it was a little disturbing, I guess. The 3 rentals went up right next to us, so I am very adamant here to talk about the business right across the street from us, which we look out to every day. I know there are only a few things that can happen at this residence. You know, businesses being only if it comes back to non-conforming. And when you go down and really think about it, and I think 99% of the neighbors agree that you'd want to see something that doesn't create an eyesore, doesn't have a lot of noise or commotion, doesn't have a lot of rowdiness or sketchy characters coming out at night. You know, that would be if it was abandoned completely. We did see some problems at that residence when it was abandoned completely, people hanging around and things. So when it comes down to it and you have an opportunity like this to have keep a historical building, keep its significance, keep it for everybody that grew up here. You know, yes, I'm a newcomer, but, you know, like, I really enjoy Mount Airy. I grew up in a town like this, and I, you know, I think that it's important to keep it that way. And, you know, putting in condos or building a Iliano Plaza or any, you know, type of plaza, large plaza like that, would that really help Main Street? Would that really, you know, beautify it, or would it it already looks better than it did when we moved in. There has been some improvements there. So I think that if this non-conforming ordinance goes through, there'll only be further beautification, further benefits, further redoing of that property. There hasn't been anything that I've seen since the current owner has been there, that has been any problems. I know that it's not a functioning business per se yet, but I think that everybody I've spoken to and my family would welcome a sign business that is not, doesn't have loud equipment, is not, people are not visiting on a daily basis, so not a lot of traffic is caused in the community. And also, you know, I know that we're supposed to keep it non-personal, but I believe the owner is a good person, and I will say that too. But you know, I'd really like the board, the council, to consider that you know, the people that live there, you know, 99% of everybody is fine with this, and I don't really see any negatives, you know, in this. So I really hope that you'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're almost out of time. Is there anybody else? All right, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Bond. I live at 110 Contour Road, and I don't have a prepared speech. I am in support of this ordinance. I've lived here now for 10 years. I brought my family to Mount Airy because of its small town values. I grew up in Rockville, and when I was a child, Rockville was like Mount Airy. And the Rockville today, I would not want to live in. I find that the property at 1010 is, what he's done to it is very attractive and has potential. And myself, well, personally, I know him. He's a nice man. I myself find the bank building at the corner of Prospect and Main more of an eyesore than I do the 1010 Contour Road or 1010 Main Street. So there are pros and cons. When I first moved up here, I was constantly annoyed by the trucks going in and out of the cold storage every day. Always worried about those big semis coming through town. Okay, who's going to get run over? Okay, I don't see anything like that coming from this business. Okay, and I was applying to Dennis Kitchens. Okay, and I had them redo my kitchen, and I had no problem with them, and I don't see any problem with this business going forward, because I enjoy what he's done with the property, and I think expansion in that property is not going to be a problem. I would rather see other things, more important things done, like that bank building down there, something done with that. That's an eyesore, and other things done that are more important. And there are valid issues in this, but I just say I do support this. And like I said, I've lived here for 10 years, and I'm proud to be a Mount Airy community member. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Rice, and I've lived in Mount Airy my whole life, and I support the ordinance of 1010 South Main Street. And
Paul, where do you live?
Chelsea Circle. Like he said, like with the memory-wise, like I've lived here my whole life, and I've never really noticed the building. Like he said, there was a business there at the time when he was a kid, so why not have something there that kids will remember these days? And just a low-traffic business is good for the town of Mount Airy, so that's why I support it. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we are coming up out of time. I don't see anybody else lining up. I'm going to call this public hearing. I guess I'll adjourn this public hearing, and we will, I guess, take a 5-minute recess and then start the council meeting. All right? Okay, let's get going.
Yes, you are.
Maybe one of those.
I'm not a gavel user.
Bang, bang.
All right,
Nobody's even listening to you.
Debbie, we on? Okay. We're calling this, that was the council secretary, using the gavel. We're calling this September 9th meeting of the Mount Airy Town Council to order. Let's start with a pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we actually started out at 7 o'clock with a public hearing on an ordinance that we're going to be covering tonight, so that's why we're actually getting started about 5 minutes late. First off, we have is approval of the council minutes from August 5th, 2013, and unless somebody's got a problem, let's do the closed minutes at the same time.
I'll make a
So
motion.
Bob's moving to accept both minutes?
Both minutes at the
All
same
right,
time.
I will second that. Does anybody have any changes? They look fine to me. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that didn't sound like everybody was opposed in there. It was unanimous. Police report. Thanks, Trooper Bonneville.
This is my first time giving the police report. Sergeant Keller would have been here, but he's got night fire scheduled for tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I'm TFC Bonneville. Been here with the town coming up on 2 years, which puts me here the longest. Not really sure what he usually does. I'm just going to read off what we did last month, and if you all have any questions, feel free to ask. During the month of August, tally sheet showing 1 911 hang-up, 29 alarms, 4 assist police departments other than our own, 3 assist sick or injured, 2 attempt to locate, 7 check welfare, 10 court dockets, 5 disabled vehicles, 5 disorderly persons, 2 domestics, 21 follow-up investigations, 3 foot or bike patrols, 6 juvenile complaints, 3 miscellaneous complaints, 6 motor vehicle accidents, 154 patrol checks, 13 request officers, 9 suspicious vehicles or persons, 6 thefts, 5 traffic complaints, 2 destructions of property. A total of 193 calls, 130 citations, 136 warnings, 37 repair orders, 6 DUIs. 4 CDS arrests. I've served 3 warrants and summons. We had 35 cards for community policing, 20 for crime prevention. Let's see, last month I did attend some specialized training. They did ask me to touch on that. The training was for basically an advanced combat handgun course put on by a corporation called Haley Strategic Partners. They basically they go around and teach. It's typically for military and law enforcement, although civilians are allowed with a law enforcement background check. Focused on combat handgun application. It was 3 10-hour days, ended up firing over 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Focused on a lot of nighttime shooting with and without a flashlight, shooting from inside and around a vehicle, through windshield glass. Of course, it was put on by Travis Haley, who's a former Marine Corps Special Forces operator and 15 years within the Marine Corps, and then he served time with Blackwater as well. It was a good course. I know a lot of people had concerns after last year's couple of shooting events that we had throughout the nation. They keep us well trained, so with the school starting again now, we're going to be inside the schools. We're going to be the school resource officers, which we did have the DARE program. The state police in Westminster was the last state police agency that still did the DARE program, if any of you are familiar with DARE. Basically teaching courses on drug prevention in schools. So we will be in and out of the 3 public schools in Carroll County, including Mount Airy Elementary, Pars Ridge, and Mount Airy Middle School. We're going to have an obligation to have presence in the school, uniform presence, working with the faculty, as well as teaching lessons for drug prevention, grades 2, 5, 7, and 8. That's all I've got for now. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, Trooper, there was no memo signed with the Frederick side of town? We have a school at the Frederick side of town as well.
Well, that's, since DARE was sort of being taken over by the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, our obligation at the Westminster Barrack was to the public schools in Carroll County. And due to, I guess you'd say the Sheriff's Department doesn't have enough manpower to cover all the schools, they asked us, since we are primary agency in Mount Airy still, to cover the Mount Airy schools. I'm not sure if they're going to end up doing the same thing with Twin Ridge Elementary. But
So presumably the Frederick County Sheriff's probably.
They
the
do
Frederick
have,
side.
the Frederick County Sheriff's Office does have a school resource program, and it's their obligation to have presence in Twin Ridge. Although, we will be in and out of Twin Ridge, just having a uniform presence, because it still is covered under town, but we're not going to be teaching drug courses as
Right, so I think, we just wanted to confirm that the school in Frederick also gets coverage as well.
And we did have an obligation to be in all the schools prior to this year.
Yeah, years past, they actually did go to Frederick County with the DARE program, under Trooper Shore, I believe it was.
And, I mean, so we're still going to be in and out of all the public schools, especially after the Sandy Hook shooting last year. I mean, we were in there almost every day, just talking with the principals, popping our heads in the classroom, just trying to make everyone feel safer. But we'll be in the parking lots and in the buildings.
But as far as the DARE program, can you, because in years past, we have went into Frederick County, just as a favor, because we had an issue that came up and I actually asked, so if you could follow up with me offline.
Sure.
Let's see what we can do about going to.
Sure, I wouldn't mind, going over that, just as long as we have
Clearance.
the clearance to do so
Sure.
with our supervisor.
Good point,
Right, and the council should note that, so y'all are covering the Carroll County schools because the Carroll County Sheriff doesn't have enough manpower, yet next year, Carroll County's told us they're not gonna fund half a trooper, as they always do, correct?
That's correct.
So, I mean, that's something we should bring up with Carroll County. They're gonna cut our funding for a trooper, yet they want our troopers to cover the schools, which is a county
Because they
function.
don't have manpower and sheriffs to do it.
That's-
That is a good point.
Very good point. If
Yeah, I
I
mean-
could get our police liaison to make a note of that.
And
Good
I'm sure
point,
it's in
Chris.
the second question, I'm sure it's in the back of everybody's mind. Any comment on, there's a pretty unfortunate incident in Summit Ridge?
Homicide.
Comment?
I was first responding officer. I'd be the person to talk to. So if you have any questions afterwards, I mean, I'll try and touch the basics. There's only so much we can say because it's an ongoing investigation. I mean, anything in particular, or do you just want a brief overview?
Was it just an isolated domestic?
It was very isolated. I mean, it was one of those things that you don't expect to happen in Summit Ridge ever, especially on a Monday afternoon, Labor Day. But the call originally came out for a check welfare. A neighbor had called in and said that she saw someone that had blood on them. So we were taking it as a possible assault, just to do check welfare of the area. Upon my arrival, I made contact with Joseph Pine, the suspect, and it was pretty obvious right off, and I can't, because it's an ongoing
If I
investigation.
could assist on the town Facebook page, there's a police, whether our website, there's a police blotter, and anyone that's interested can go to the Town of Mount Airy website, townofmountairy.org, and you can see a report about the incident.
And that's not in this month's police report because it's
It's happened in
because it happened this month, not last month.
It was
So
on the-
next month's report, we'll have that data.
Raises a good point. It's on everybody's mind, and I can see some resistance, and we can take care of that for you. It's already on, we do have a police blotter on the town website. For instances, when things like this happen, you can go right there and find out what happened, and we'll post as soon as we can. Certainly, there's times we can't post immediately when the helicopters are hovering, but as soon as we can, we get things posted, and that incident is posted right now.
He was immediately taken into custody, and then it was determined that his father, Michael Pine, was deceased. We had set up a crime scene in accordance with our state police policies. Isolated incident, there was no crime history with either the suspect or the victim. The only call we had received there was a 911 hang-up in February, and there was no disposition on that, meaning that likely no one answered the door when we went there. But there was no history of domestic violence or anything there. Most of the neighbors we spoke with didn't know them real well, had no problems with him in the past, but it was an isolated incident. and he is in custody, and they'll, MSP Homicide is handling the investigation. But, I mean, if any of you all have concerns, you feel free to call me or contact the mayor.
Well, there's no ongoing concerns for the neighborhood, and
No.
our thoughts and prayers are with the remaining family.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, up next, Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Company. Who's, Jeff, come on up. Wasn't sure if it was you or Bruce this month.
Point to us.
For the month of August, there was a total of 154 calls, 86 in Carroll, 64 in Frederick, 1 in Howard, and 3 in Montgomery. Just to touch base on a couple fundraisers we have coming up tomorrow night. Memories Charcoal House is holding their 4th annual fundraiser for us. 10% of all their proceeds from open to close is being donated back to the fire department. We'll be out there about 6 o'clock doing raffles, ticket jars, hanging out. So if you're looking for something to do tomorrow night, come out and have some dinner. Got a couple guys from Montgomery County Pipes and Drums are going to be out there playing the bagpipes for us tomorrow night. They have a DJ playing. On the 21st is our 2nd annual all-you-can-eat chicken wing feed, $20 a person, all you can eat. Call the firehouse, they can get you some tickets if you need them. And October 6th is our open house, fire prevention open house from 1 to 4. And that's all I have for tonight.
Any questions, anybody? Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, up next, we've got at the top of our docket here, the ethics regulations. As you know, we had an ethics ordinance.
We skipping community concerns?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Scott. We were moving this
Nice
stuff, but we
try.
won't. Yeah, that's up. Well, my habit is to try and get visitors out of here as quick as possible.
I understand.
But let's do community concerns at this point. We've got a couple minutes. Everybody has a community concern, bring it up. Step right
Is
up.
that board
Terry?
in the way of everybody going to the podium?
Good evening. My name is Terry King, and I live in Autumn Ridge Court, and I am the project manager of the Mount Airy Arts Council, and I am also Bob's wife, and that could be a good thing, depending on who you are.
Some days are good,
Some days are good, yeah. But anyway, first off, I just wanted to thank the town for their support on the Arts Council. It means a lot to all of us, and it keeps us going. And if you all weren't there to support us, we would not really be able to function very well at all. So the second reason I'm here is to introduce a fundraiser that we're doing on September 29th from 1 to 5 at Lorienzo's. And it's a meet and greet. It gives you the opportunity to meet the artists and talk to them and find out a little information about them, how they came to their art, what they do, how, where they came from, what school they went to, whatever. We also will have live music from our musicians who also are part of the council. We just finished a 5-week concert series, which was very well received. We have awesome musicians. So, that's a plus. And we have special times for them. It's on the flyer. I think it's out on the window. If you want to listen to a certain type of music while you're there. There'll be light hors d'oeuvres, and 5 artists have donated their work for a silent auction. So that's going to be kind of fun, and I'm hoping to have T-shirts for sale. So we're doing everything we can to make some money because we have to function somehow. I can't keep paying for it all, so I'm trying. Anyway, so it's $25 a person. That includes 1 drink ticket for a domestic beer or a house wine. And also, if you're interested in the arts in any way, you don't have to be an artist to be involved in the Arts Council. If you just enjoy the arts in any way, every second Wednesday of the month, we hold our meeting here at 7:30. And we do all kinds of things, and you can be involved. We need all kinds of people doing all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested, see me. And if you want any tickets, I am missing a Redskins game for this, so somebody, I would appreciate it. And that's it.
Terry, I had one question for
Yes.
you. Is this, because I've got the invitation at home, is this kind of a, drop in? Because I know it's
Yes.
scheduled for 4 hours. This is not a you go and you're there all 4 hours.
Yeah, it's an
Come in,
open
you look at
house.
stuff. Okay.
Come and go. You can come for
Okay.
10 minutes, you can come for 4 hours, you can come for however long you want. So give you an opportunity to talk to people.
Thanks.
Terry, if I could, I'm going to make sure I get 2 tickets for Mary Beth and myself.
Okay.
And also, I
Worth
want to
it.
say, those concert series that she did out here in the
Yes.
plaza were absolutely fantastic.
Good.
I was only able to attend one of them, and it was just a wonderful evening. I encourage the community, when you can, to be a part of this. Terry, you've done a great job, and
Thank
those
you.
the rest of the council members have done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Just keep up the great work.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Any other community concerns? Okay, we got one more. Actually, we got two. Why don't you get, whoever wants to, why don't you get over here on the wall so we have some idea?
My name's Dick Swanson. I'm with the Mount Airy Main Street Association, and this week is History 101 week. And I was torn between coming down to the town council meeting or listening to a fascinating talk on the ride of Jeff Stewart and his cavalry through Maryland on, I chose the town council. My wife chose the lecture. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night and Thursday night at the library, I believe they all start at 7 o'clock or several other discussions. Tuesday night is the War of 1812 and Star Spangled Banner and all the history behind that. Wednesday night is the story of the secession of West Virginia during the Civil War, and interestingly enough, and Mayor and I just got interviewed by Channel 9 down in Washington about our feelings about 5 western counties of Maryland seceding from the state of Maryland. So that would be a timely lesson in history.
Channel 9 at 11 o'clock tonight.
Channel 9, 11 o'clock tonight. And Thursday night, we're going to have Ben Franklin here in person to talk about the Revolutionary War period in his life in Philadelphia and abroad. And so we encourage you to come to that. And Saturday, right here, and I think it's 1 o'clock, we're going to have 3 of Mount Airy's long time residents to talk about what life was like in Mount Airy over the last 150 years or however old they are. How old are they? Pete, how old are they? They've been around for a while. So that's always a very interesting talk. So encourage you to take part in the festivities all week under sponsorship of the Mount Airy Main Street Association. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. And I know we had Chris.
So, Peter, by way of introduction, Chris Bard's going to speak. Chris has addressed the Water and Sewer Commission on some of the rain tax issues. Chris is a subject matter expert. He doesn't consider himself one, but he'd like to address the council on some views.
Okay, yeah. Well, thanks for calling me that, but I would be exaggerating my knowledge if I said I was on this topic. Anyway, the reason I'm here is to, there's a lot of frustration over some of it's tightening up of the Clean Water Act and all the implications and the costs that are going on to society with that. We had the flush tax, I believe it was in 2012. We've got, rain tax stuff coming up in Carroll County. So I'm here, I guess, to actually put a plug in for those efforts and say, let's not look at those as a bad thing, because what they're really trying to do is something that's in all of our interests, clean the bay up and improve water quality in the streams and things. And along that line, I guess I'd like to have, my request is that we don't join the Rural Counties Coalition fighting the Clean Water Act stuff. So that's, if there's anything out of what I have to say, that would be my request. So the Clean Water Act stuff, complicated as heck. You try and read through it and my God, you can hardly understand it. It's like looking at the diagram for an automobile engine or something. But what's going on is we've got lots of sources of pollution to the bay, into our streams and things. They're regulated differently. There's different levels of knowledge. There's different entities involved. And so the regulations are complicated, and I can barely understand them. And I've actually gotten to spend years looking at them. Let me back up a little bit. We hear about the flush tax, and a lot of people are frustrated about that. I guess I think that's actually a great thing that society did here in Maryland. We're actually kicking in money to pay for upgrading wastewater treatment plants throughout the state and to do septic tank improvement throughout the state. So to me, I actually, some complain about the tens of dollars per year or whatever the heck it is. I look up that as a great accomplishment, is that we are, as a society, working to clean up the bay and trying to cut down on those sources of pollution. Rain tax, what the heck's going on here? Stormwater management kind of gets down to that. What's stormwater management? That's, in the modern sense of it, is trying to control rain and snow on impervious surfaces and then where it goes when it drains. It wasn't too long ago that proper stormwater management was getting the water off your property. After that, you didn't care. It's off my property. We evolved a little bit, and then we started worrying about, oops, when we build a lot of impervious surfaces, sometimes we flood people downstream. So there started to be regulations dealing with downstream flooding. Oops, Then we realized that stormwater, when it hits the roads and picks up gasoline and car parts and all your antifreeze and all that stuff, and then runs into the streams, causes water quality problems. So we started having regulations designed to try and minimize the water quality impacts of stormwater runoff. Whoops, there's more to it than that. Kind of came to the realization that not only do we have those problems, but we also have problems of severe erosion caused by stormwater runoff. So there's all kinds of problems with uncontrolled stormwater runoff. The regulations today in Maryland are fantastic. We have about the best in the country to deal with new development and redevelopment. But there was a whole period of time where we didn't have good regulations in place. So we've got this legacy of things that were constructed before we understood the problems of it. So now the rain tax is an effort to try and basically fund improvements to correct those legacy problems that are there from a time when we didn't understand managing stormwater runoff very well. Once again, the Clean Water Act stuff, very complicated. The rain tax right now does not apply to us. It applies to large and medium jurisdictions, which has its own definitions. I don't understand it very well. Carroll County fits into that, Baltimore City, but not Mount Airy. However, the expectation is some of our, what's called an MS4 Phase 2 permit, when that gets moving on, the next one we have to get, it will tighten up a bit, and we will be expected to improve our management of basically impervious surfaces that don't have stormwater treatment in the town. And there would be some cost with that. So it's, strictly speaking, it's not the rain tax, but it's kind of similar. And the new permit regulations are expected to be out. So this isn't out yet, but the MDE, Maryland Department of the Environment, working with EPA and others, are developing new regulations which are supposed to be out for public review sort of the end of 2013, early 2014. Now MS4, even that, what the heck's MS4? Well, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. Well, why do they have such complicated names? Well, because some places don't have separate stormwater systems, et cetera. So there's all this complicated engineering gobbledygook that you got to deal with, and once again, it makes it seem very complicated. So at that time, when the MS4 Phase 2 permit comes out for public review, that would be a great time, actually, for Carroll County, certainly, because I know they've handled a lot of our permitting needs in the past, and I don't exactly understand what we do in all that permit stuff. But between us and Carroll County, that would be a good time, is to look into that draft permit and see what our obligations would be at that time. But contrary to, I think, what a lot of the fears are, there's, oh my God, the rain tax, it's going to bankrupt society. These environmental laws will fail if they bankrupt society. The various environmental groups that have pushed these things, the governments that are pushing, the government agencies that are pushing, they're not pushing it to bankrupt society. They're pushing these things to try and do something that's in everybody's interest that, quite frankly, the private sector is not able to deal with on its own. So it's kind of one of those things where government involvement is necessary, almost like national defense. We can't defend ourselves nationally, individually, so it becomes a government problem. So that's government involvement here. And I guess my own take on a lot of this stuff is I don't see this as liberal or conservative or anything. I see it as kind of in everybody's interest. And the Clean Water Act in its modern form actually was passed under Nixon. The new Clean Water Act stuff is actually tries to incorporate market principles into it too. Basically, it's trying to figure out what's the most cost-effective way to get these clean water improvements that we're striving for. And with stormwater management, there's a whole range of potential measures you can implement. I mean, at its simplest, like rain gardens, little depressions with plants in it that collect rain, or rain barrels. Or at the other end, the far more extreme costs would be, large ponds and going into streams and putting rocks to control erosion and other things. So the things that would be asked of the town under a new Phase 2 MS4 permit could include a broad range of measures, and what those would be yet aren't determined. So I guess when I've talked to MDE folks about this and about the Rural Counties Coalition, and a lot of the estimates that are now surfacing over extreme costs, is their advice is, and to me it sounds pretty sound, is those cost estimates are a starting point. They're a starting point for negotiation. Once again, the environmental agencies do not want to bankrupt society. They fail in what they're trying to do here. They're trying to find a cost-effective way to improve the quality of the bay, the rivers and streams, et cetera. So I guess what my request would be of us is that we not seek to fight the Clean Water Act, but as this permitting process evolves over time, and it is evolving, let's try to work constructively. Sure, we don't want to bankrupt ourselves, so we want to get the cheapest or the most cost-effective things we can do, but let's do it in a constructive way and not end up fighting the Clean Water Act and seeking to stop efforts to better manage stormwater runoff. And if the rural county coalition succeeds, to me, it's almost tragic in many respects. If you stop the efforts to improve the water quality in the bay, who's that? It's kind of hurting all of us, right? So I don't see that as a good thing. I do see trying to control costs, of course, as in everybody's interest, and we should do that. So at its simplest then, request, let's not join that coalition. Let's look at this whole thing as an evolving process that's got more flexibility to it. The cost estimates that I think you'll present at some point this evening, that's my understanding, are a starting point. There's lots of room for negotiation. The agencies don't want to bankrupt us, or they fail. So, another thing is, I guess I look on it as, we have something to benefit from it. It's yes, it will cost something, but it's not without a benefit to us too. So, thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Anybody else? All right. Now let's move on to ethics. We've got Michael Ward here tonight, I think, who's the, welcome, Executive Director of the Maryland State Ethics Commission. I know you've been dialoguing with our ethics chair over some of the issues that the town had. There's our ethics chair, Dick, in the back. Dick, do you want to come up? And I know whenever we get in discussion of ethics, you always end up walking up to the podium. So you might as well move up and sit in the chair in the corner there by Terry, because I know you're going to do it.
Don't put him in the corner, put him front and center.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for the invitation that Dick relayed to us last week, and I'm happy to be here. I'm the executive director, and I have a very capable staff of 11 who work for me. And Dick has been working closely with two people on our staff, Jennifer Elgar, our general counsel, and Kate Thompson, who's our assistant general counsel. And I just want to relate to you, members of the council, that they found him an absolute delight to work with, helpful, cooperative, and so you have a great representative from Mount Airy in Dick, which I suspect you already know. I'm really here to answer some questions. I have a sense from talking to Dick and reading some of the correspondence what the concerns are, and so I'm really here to respond to things that you want to ask. I know two of the concerns, I believe I know two of the concerns have to do with this financial disclosure provision requiring the disclosure of real property wherever owned. I think that's one of the concerns about why that provision has to be and why the Ethics Commission would not approve of something more narrow in scope, like within the city limits or within the county limits or something. And I think there's another issue about disclosing interests in corporations, which largely are your stock holdings. And again, I can give you some more background about why we're where we're at if you'd like that, but it depends on how much information you'd like me to provide to you.
No, I'd say go ahead and start with those two questions.
Just tell you
why.
Okay.
Why? I guess why. For example, the real property issue. How does if I owned property or my kids or my wife owned property in Venezuela? Why
does that matter?
Why would that be something that needs to be disclosed to the public?
Well, I think,
and if you could, the question in context of a small town, where we are essentially volunteers here.
Right.
And hasn't been anybody on council that is not for an ethics ordinance and for reporting and whatnot. But
sure.
The context here is we're a small town. We are essentially volunteers here.
Right.
And our concern is not just for ourselves, but what you are doing is chasing away likely a large pool of qualified candidates who might want to run for office because of the owner's disclosure agreements.
That's not you personally, it's the ethics
well,
ordinance.
no, and I think it's, thank you, because I've only been there 2 years, I haven't had a chance to chase anybody yet, but I understand what you're saying, and I think I need to explain a couple things, though, because of course I'm here speaking on behalf of our 5-member or appointed commission, and of course, and so the decisions that have been made are made by the commission, and implementing the law is passed by the General Assembly. So I think the important consideration here is to keep in mind that the Ethics Commission is simply implementing the law that's been on the books since 2010. And so...
You're also interpreting, are you not?
Well, not really, and let me tell you why. when we're talking about the particular provisions that are an issue tonight. The law in 2010, as you know, was changed from what it had been in terms of the requirements for local governments. And the law went from saying that your local law with respect to your elected officials, which is you folks, the laws with respect to financial disclosure and conflicts of interest as of the passage of this 2010 law had to be equivalent to the state law. Prior to 2010, the language was similar to. So similar to gives you some leeway and some flexibility and allows you to do some things that the word equivalent doesn't. So the law was passed, and it was passed unanimously by both the House, vote of both the House and the Senate. And equivalent suggests pretty strongly that you look at the language in the state law as it applies to state employees, and then when applied to elected officials at the local level, that law has to read the same.
Does that apply to state, local elected officials as well? In other words,
Yes.
delegates and state
Oh,
senators?
yes.
Okay.
And see, that's part of, and I guess I should say that now. So there have been some concerns in the last few years that maybe they've gone a little far. And so MML, on your behalf, Maryland Municipal League, and other local governments on their own have come to the General Assembly over the course of the last 3 years and said, you know, it's a little broad. It's a bit of an overreach. It's the suggestion you have, sir, that, you know, small towns seem to have problems. It's going to drive away good quality representatives who don't want to disclose what this law is requiring. And in each time, there were some draft laws presented and they never passed, suggesting to most of us, including the Ethics Commission, that for now, the Ethics Commission is pretty much obliged to interpret and apply the law as it was passed in 2010.
What was when they passed the law in 2010, what was the context behind it? Wasn't it, and be blunt, wasn't it the fact that in PG County, you got an executive whose wife has 80,000, is it 80,000 bucks she was running around with, stuffed down her shirt?
Well, you know, I don't know. I wasn't there. So that's the beauty that I can say because I came in.
It's reported in the press.
Okay.
What was the context of when they passed this in 2010? They just said, hey, we need to tighten this up.
I suspect there was some concerns about something going on at the local level, whether it was that case or another incident or a series of incidents. But as you know, a lot of laws get passed reacting to something. So you're probably right.
You're not going to answer the question directly.
Well, that's probably the best I can do for you.
Well, you're not going to answer the question directly.
Well, actually, yeah, I wasn't there. I was not on the job, and so I've kind of been moving forward from 2011 since I arrived. But I do need to tell you that the provisions that we're talking about have been in the law with respect to state employees and officials since 1979. The state ethics law was enacted in 1979, and those provisions always existed so that people like me who file financial disclosure have to disclose real property that we own wherever it exists, not just limited to the state of Maryland. We have to disclose our interests in corporations and other non-corporate interests, stocks, basically.
So you have to disclose every single stock you own?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless it's a mutual fund. The law, and I was telling Dick, the law has, and that's what a lot of us hold, is mutual funds. You know, I mean, there certainly are investors that hold individual stocks, but the law just changed effective this coming 1st of October, and if you hold your investments in mutual funds, you don't have to disclose them anymore. The theory behind, as best I can tell, keep in mind that this law was in effect, it's been in effect for 34 years. We'd have to go back to the legislative history to see why they enacted it the way they did. But my guess is, for instance, with respect to your financial interests, I think the theory is that people in government, there's procurement that goes on, contracting that goes on, and there's the potential to purchase things, i.e. lots of computers. Obviously more so at the state level than Mount Airy, I grant you that. At the state level, somebody could probably sign some sort of requisition for hundreds and hundreds of Dell computers who may own Dell stock. So the theory is maybe Dell's not doing business with the state at the moment, but if I don't disclose and I'm the person signing off approving this purchase and I own Dell stock, well, it would have been nice for the people, the public, to know that maybe I had an interest. I think that's the notion about stock, not limited to entities that do business with the state, or in your case, Mount Airy, but broader than that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I was going to say, in conjunction with Maryland, you hit it on the head, I think. Maryland is interacting with a large number of either interstate, out-of-state, within the continental U.S. businesses, corporations, et cetera, to purchase, acquisition, influence, et cetera.
Spending trillions.
Yes, compared to a municipality, and I'll use Mount Airy because we're in it, where the pool is a lot smaller of the people that we interact with. And as such, I could see when we've proposed, if you have property in the surrounding county or something like that, you would want to highlight that because it could have an economic impact either just outside the municipality or within the municipality of people we're doing business with. And in the interest of full disclosure, you'd want to do that. Just like at the state level, you'd want to, talk about your Dell computers if you had a lot of Dell stock or you were making a huge purchase with them. So I think the magnitude associated with the state level and holding a municipality at the same level, I think that's the problem that
Well, particularly one of our
to-
size.
Right, trying to highlight is that when you are not doing large purchases, example, if I worked for Boeing, for airlines, if I'm going to end up selling airlines to someone else, you're going to want to end up knowing who are all those airline purchases going to, who's the businesses, how's it going to impact financially, et cetera. We're not doing something of the magnitude of the state. So we're trying to narrow it down to what things do we actually have an influence on that we really need to report to be ethical.
Well, I could add something to the property. Now, I've heard Common Cause make this argument in hearings at the General Assembly about in opposition to proposals to reduce the scope of the real property disclosure to something within the jurisdiction or some smaller area than everywhere. And Common Cause's position was, and you can take this for what it's worth, they view the potential somebody who's making a zoning decision or granting permits for this or that. Somebody might not give you a sweet deal on property in your own jurisdiction, but somebody might, some developer might have a piece of property in a Colorado ski resort, and next thing you know, you're the owner of that, and you happen to be voting on this permit proposal, for instance. So the idea that...
But that would already be illegal.
Not to mention it's covered in the ethics that it states anybody doing business with the town, you have to claim. So you're touching on, you're going to do business with somebody that owns property somewhere else or is going to sell you something else. So therefore, you're already covered under ethics. If you're just buying property in another state, your ski resort, for example, wherever it is, then if they're not doing business with the town, there's no impact, there's no influence, there's no anything.
And I have to make the point again, these are all arguments that have been made to the General Assembly. I heard them because
I think with the General Assembly, in my personal view, is the General Assembly is looking at it as themselves. They're not looking at it as the lower municipalities or the localities because they have to hold it in their own mind. How do I understand this? Well, here's how it impacts me, so that's what I'm going to hold everybody accountable to. Well, they're not looking at the lower level of what do we see? We see everything down here.
But I can say they've heard that. I mean, they may, if they're ignoring it, it's not because they haven't heard it, because the folks have testified at hearings and made the very point. Yes, sir.
I just want everybody in this room who is a volunteer for the town of Mount Airy, serves on a commission, serves in a volunteer position for Mount Airy, hold your hand up. Okay? This is what we're faced with. These are our potential town council candidates in the next election.
I wouldn't mind disclosing. I would not have a problem.
Okay? Pete, how about you?
I would. And we're not only to ethics, but to everybody in the world. Can know every single stock that you hold.
What becomes public information, and maybe that's an
Correct, it
important
is public
distinction.
information.
It becomes public.
Let me finish one
And
second.
what your wife owns, your kids own.
My wife cannot go to my doctor and get information on me without my signature.
HIPAA laws.
And yet she will be able to come, or anybody will be able to come down here to this town hall and get all of my financial information, all of my disclosure forms, just by asking.
Yep, with PIR.
Well, and
For
you're
a
right.
very part-time job. I mean, this isn't our career. We're not career politicians.
Sure. Well, I do think there's certainly this won't allay all your concerns, but there are a couple of things that we've read in the media and other reports that suggest maybe the scope of this is not, is believed to be more than it is. Like your spouse, if she owns real estate, if she owns stocks or whatever, if she owns it in her own name and you're not a co-owner, You don't have to disclose, your spouse isn't dragged into this, your dependent children aren't dragged into this unless you happen to be in a
Well, what if I'm
co-owner.
named the beneficiary on that account?
Well,
She's
it's
got a
bit-
retirement account, she dies, it becomes mine.
Well, when it becomes yours.
That is important clarification, but I don't think that's how the sample form reads.
The sample form doesn't read that way. It actually
Yours-
says immediate family.
Yeah.
Well, there is a
Which is-
form that asks
The form you guys
for
don't read that way.
Brother, sister.
real,
And that was wording we sent
real
back.
property you're talking about now?
Everything.
No, what it is if you are the owner and your spouse is a co-owner, then you've got
Do you
to
have that
disclose
wording
it.
in front of you,
What
Tom?
happens if, so, I mean, and then.
I got the
I'll
ordinance right
make
here.
a statement. What happens if my spouse tells me, we co-own this property, you are not reporting that? So, in effect, you're gonna get, you're, in understanding that you're charged with interpreting this law.
Right.
My spouse says, you're not reporting any of our mutual holdings, nor are you reporting the property that we own. So now you're gonna get between my spouse and I, because my spouse has told me, you're not reporting that information.
It's none of their business, you're not reporting it.
So then what?
So what do I do? My marriage or my $4,000 a year job?
I'm not in a counseling position. But
Bob's wife is sitting right there, so.
I mean,
Look, I gotta sleep with her in the house, it's, the marriage is winning.
Good answer,
Well,
Bob.
you know, I really don't, that's a choice you have to make. You know, and I would hope you make the right choice.
Okay, all right, but let's continue, but I mean, but to me, this is a serious question.
No, it-
So I am gonna make the right choice, I'm gonna listen to my spouse. Okay, so then, what does the State Ethics Commission plan on doing?
Well, if the law is enacted the way it's supposed to be enacted, the implementation and administration of it is done locally, we're out of the game. The law reads that the Ethics Commission at the state level is charged with seeing to it that the local governments implement a law that satisfies the requirements of the state law. Once you do that, how it's interpreted, I'm not suggesting they can, if the plain language says one thing and they interpret it a different way, it might be a little hard, but how it's actually applied, interpreted, the kind of information that's deemed to satisfy the requirements are all decided at the local level. We
So
wouldn't
it's not
we wouldn't
for-
deal with that at all. Dick
So
would
it's
deal
not-
with it.
Oh, we gotta replace Dick and find somebody else.
Can we just sign
He's like,
it?
you've decided over. But, I mean, so you're charged with making sure that the municipalities are compliant with your interpretation.
Well, again, some of this is hard to interpret any other way.
But with your interpretation, but it's up to the local jurisdiction to enforce.
Right, and interpret. No, we don't interpret your law. We say, this is what you have to have in it. And
then
I'm
you're
not trying to,
Well, I know you're not trying to parse words, but this is very relevant. You're
Right.
coming, and of course, not personal, but you're representing the state legislature who.
well, no,
has-
I'm representing the Ethics Commission,
Thank you.
big distinction. I mean, it is a big
Yeah, that's
distinction.
fair. No, it's very
Because
fair.
they passed the law, frankly, and I'm not, we're implementing the law they handed us.
Understood.
And I'm not saying it's a bad law, I'm just saying we're implementing it and doing what the commission believes it's supposed to do based on what the law says.
But I guess one thing that you just said that was key is we're just kind of telling you what you need to have in there, but we're not going to do anything else with it
can't,
yet.
yeah.
Understood, yet we're actually applying, here's our version of the ethics ordinance that we would like to pass to be compliant, and you're telling us no. So you are telling us more than just, well, here's the things you need to have in it. You're saying, we don't like the way you interpret it, which is what you just said.
Well, I don't think so.
What he
We're-
just.
We're
let me-
talking,
Help me just, so what he's saying is, he's gonna tell us what meets the state requirements.
content.
And then, that's it. Then he goes his merry way back to Annapolis where he'll help advise them to raise our taxes even more.
Okay. But if we give him something and he says no,
Well,
it doesn't end there.
I'm not saying anything.
Councilman
Ethics.
Everett.
You're getting locked in with ethics.
Well, and I want to be.
I'm trying to understand
Scott,
how
let
do
me
we get to
follow
a common ground.
Right, we're not. Let me
well-
follow the thought, which is what I was driving towards, and what Dick Swanson's helped us with. All right, so we passed this ethics ordinance, because they're gonna hold us, all right. Now, when it comes to enforcement, we're gonna fill out the forms, and my form might say, my wife said no, none of your gosh darn business. and I'm going to hand that to the Ethics Commission. It's up to our Ethics Commission to interpret what they do with that.
Well, you're signing that under oath. I would suggest if you don't list something that meets the requirement, it's more than an interpretation problem.
Then okay,
I'm-
wait a minute, well, you just said you're not going to get between.
It's not our call, but I'm saying
It goes back.
it goes back to your ethics.
I think the Ethics Commission is saying, this is what will or will not meet state law. Once we submit our ethics ordinance to you, you will say this does or does not meet state law. Then it comes back on us to basically enforce it. And again, I understand when you sign the document, you're basically saying that this is a true account. After the fact, if it's not a true account, we have to deal with that here on this level. The Ethics Commission has separated
We have no
itself.
jurisdiction over you at that
Exactly.
point.
That, again, that comes back down onto us, correct?
Right.
We do the rest.
I'm not inviting you to, to not follow your law, but it's not up to the state ethics
No,
commission.
I understand that. What I'm trying to get through all of this, what's in the weeds here, I understand. The Ethics Commission is saying, this is what does not meet state law. If we submit something and you say that meets state law, run with it. Now it's on us to actually enforce it.
Yep, that's exactly right. And certify to us on an annual basis that your law is in compliance. And that's the stumbling block we're at right now, is to certify that your law is in compliance. There's a couple, and it's really about 2 points that aren't going to get the approval of the ethics committee.
Can we agree, or at least you and I agree, that this is overreaching for a municipality of this size?
Chris, I don't think that's the point here. I don't think the Ethics Commission can really take a thing whether the state's overreaching or not.
Dave, that's not my question.
I doubt that he can actually say that.
Yeah,
I just want to see, Phil.
thank you. No, I'm not in a position to say that.
That's fine, that's what I wanted
But I have one point I think I ought to make, because when we talk about content, this is what the state law says, and this is what the state law says is supposed to be in the local laws. And when I read this, I think you'll see we're not interpreting. It says here, the statement shall include a schedule of each interest in real property wherever located. And that's what it says. So to put something different from wherever located, then you haven't satisfied the local law requirements.
Okay, now, real property wherever located of who? Just us, or?
Including interest held in the name of a partnership, LLC, or limited liability company where the individual held an interest. So you got to have an interest in that
Okay.
property, not your spouse alone, not your parents, not your children.
Let me ask one quick. The main concern or the main issue that I had was the definition of what immediate family is. And I know we had gone around and around. Is there, I guess, I don't want to use the word play, but is there some movement there where, like, brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers could not be termed as immediate family, and immediate family could be like the individuals that live in my household, my wife, myself, my 4 children?
Well, there's 2 different places where this family concept comes in. One of them has to do with qualifying family members, and that has to do with the conflicts of interest section. Now, we've been focused on financial disclosure. You know, I don't think anyone's suggesting that you want to change or modify the conflict of interest restrictions. Well, the qualifying family member, which is parent, spouse, child, sibling, that has a meaning in that context. You can't participate in a matter where your qualifying relative has an interest. You can't sit down in a job hiring process if your brother's showing up as one of the applicants, that type of thing. That's under the conflicts of interest. Family members, that comes in under the financial disclosure piece, and that typically only refers to spouse and dependent child.
Okay.
I think the mayor has a question.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you very much for taking your evening to come
You're most
down
welcome.
here. And you can see that we take this ordinance
You
very
do.
seriously.
And you, by the way, you're the first folks that have invited us to do this.
you're turning down
I don't know how,
people's
I was just, I don't know how fast I'll jump on it next time, but I'm actually pleased to be here because you do take it seriously, and that's what this shows us.
We're not, no offense, but we're not pleased to have you.
Well,
I wasn't.
Pat, yeah, go ahead.
I guess as a public servant and the people that enact this legislation, what they should be concerned about as public servants as well is that you have heard from the Maryland Municipal League, you have heard from various sources that are concerned that this should not be a one-size-fits-all proposal, but yet, if I'm hearing you correctly, there's been no adjustments.
Well, they have been there.
Have there been?
Yeah, but let me tell you how that's applied.
Because originally, I thought you
This-
said
this-
several people have come before you, and nothing has changed.
Well, this
with
may
others.
open Pandora's box, but at that risk, the law has authorized the State Ethics Commission to grant exemptions to municipalities. And you're
Right,
probably
we didn't
aware
get
of
one.
Of certain
I don't think you've
sizes.
actually applied yet, have you? We haven't applied, and the
okay.
reason is because the law defines that, it says this: if based on its size, so that's the first question, if the municipality is of a size that suggests that this isn't required under given the intention and reasons for the law, that it's going to create a hardship, that it's going to deter people from public service, if based on the size of the municipality. So the commission has granted, actually I have some numbers here which I will leave with you. The commission has granted some 73 exemptions, I believe.
That's almost 50%.
74
There's like
full.
156 municipalities.
But as you know, I didn't know until I got into this job and we started doing this, we've got municipalities with 50 people, 80
Right.
people. And so you can understand there, the size is a particularly significant situation. So, but size has been, I was just going to say, size has been
Yeah, I'm gonna
defined in
finish
our
my point, if I
regulations,
could,
not just as
Councilman.
number of people. It's been defined as the size of the budget, because if small population, but a lot of money that are being handled by the elected officials makes sense, the number of municipal employees, and the type of functions performed by the local government. Those are all factors that the commission has defined as relevant to size. So a little St. Michael's with about 1,200 people has been required to have a full law because they bring in a whole lot of money. Something closer to about 1,900 people, which isn't that big. There's been a couple of municipalities that have been given a full exemption, but I have to tell you, there's been no entity up in the 9,000 or so range that Mount Airy's at that has been given a full exemption from the
Okay,
law.
well, then I
Let
stand
Pat
corrected.
finish.
Thank you for that clarification, because I'd be very concerned if they did not.
No, so there's
So
some,
they
there's
have
some.
been. Thank you for clarification.
And so the commission, for the last 2 years that it's been implementing this, has, and don't, I don't know if there's anybody from the press, don't write this as a number, a sacred cow, but about 1,600
You're
or so
clicking, don't you?
population has been kind of a cutoff below which the commission has said, you all should be having an ethics law. We've had entities come to us for an exemptions. Above 1,600, generally no, but that's people. Then you look at the budget size, and so some other things can skew it a little up or down, so there is some leeway. It's been vested in the commission, and the commission has used that. And in the wake of doing that, so using that number, that information's been brought back to the General Assembly the last few years by local governments who have said, this is not a good place to cut it off. We're at 7,000. We have the same problems, and the General Assembly hasn't seen fit to change the law. So
two real quick things. One, you said real property wherever located. Is located actually defined? I know you said anywhere, which is broad. So anywhere could be in the world, or is it in
Yeah.
relation to
Wherever
what
located.
entity you're talking about, i.e. Maryland, municipality, et cetera?
Well,
And is there leeway on where located is, since you said?
I think keep in mind, that really is an interpretation question. But I think
know.
I'd have a real hard time saying wherever located somehow is
It's less than
narrow.
every place.
So
Yeah,
if-
I mean, wherever located strikes me as pretty broad, but that is not our issue. If you say wherever located in your law, and somehow is interpreted differently, there might be some people that don't think that's properly interpreted, and they might squawk, but we don't get in the game. We're not an appellate court either. No one's coming to
Okay.
us because they don't like a decision made at the local government.
So that was the first question, and then the second follow-up is, you said full exemptions.
Yes.
And so, or exceptions, and so I would end up saying, what about partial?
Well, the commission has granted a number of partial exceptions, but I'm going to be candid and tell you that while it's an exception, it hasn't been particularly, it's not what the local governments have come for. There's three components of the law that the commission looks at. Conflicts of interest. Nobody has come to us and said, hey, we need to modify the conflict of interest provisions. We think you're a little too harsh. Financial disclosure, we've been talking about that. That's where all the concern has been. Third one is lobbying. You all have to have a lobbying section, even, I don't know how many people are lobbying Mount Airy government, but there's a requirement to have a lobbying provision, and that's where the commission has often said when somebody's come for a full exemption, they say you're too big. But you're small enough, if you don't put lobbying provisions in your law, that's fine.
So
That's where the partial exemptions.
since there's only one of the three things that we're talking about here, 2/3 of it should be acceptable to the commission. So we're really only dealing with a third, which is the financial aspect for disclosure.
And only a small part of that, as I
And
understand
only
it.
a very small part of that. So is there wiggle room with regards to some type of partial exception so we come to common terms? We're only talking about one or two small things. We're talking about one, which is interpretation, where is located, and defining any, where we're defining what any means to us. So if your body has no dog in the fight, if you will, as long as it meets state code, which is we're defining what located means to us, should be compliant.
Well, I think I can answer that. There are 73 municipalities right now that need to have an ethics law. And some of those, and then there's a number that have been exempted.
So what, 112 total, right?
There's 156
150 something, yeah.
156, there's some special taxing districts, but there's around 156, 157, depending upon how you define it.
So there's 73 entities that have either sought an exemption or have realized, and not gotten one, or just realized they're too big. Baltimore City, Annapolis, Gaithersburg, and they haven't even sought it. Out of those 73, 58 have enacted a law, including a number where they've come to the commission for an exemption, and the commission has said, we just can't grant it. So there's about 15 left. Of those 15, there's 4 who have submitted a law to the commission that'll be considered at the commission's meeting on Thursday that from preliminary read should be approved. So that gets us to 62 of 73 municipalities that are on board. So the and I tell you that as background because for the commission, and the commission has not said, we're going to tweak this little area for you and make these, the commission has not done that in a single case. And so the commission really doesn't feel that interpreting and putting this law into practice, there's no wiggle room there when it says, you're going to report property wherever owned. That's what the law charges the commission with enforcing. And as I said, 62 as of Thursday, out of 73 have done it. Maybe they've kind of held their nose and done it, but they've done it. And then it's passed on to the Ethics Commission to, again, I would never advocate ignoring it, but I'm just telling you that we're not in the game at that point. But every year, you'll have to come back to us on October 1st, once you've enacted and got approval, to tell us with a certificate that
Well, the Ethics Commission will do that. They'll issue a
Yes,
certificate
they
every
will.
year saying we're in compliance.
Correct.
Well, I think you've alleviated a lot of concerns when you did sit here at the podium and say tonight that spouses, children are not included unless one of the electeds have an interest, a joint interest with them, but their holdings are not.
Mr. Mayor, there is a schedule that asks for where your spouse works. Not how much she makes or he makes, but where your spouse works. That's required of your spouse. I think the
Okay.
theory being is you could be voting on something that somehow has an impact. So it makes some sense.
But not financial disclosure.
No one asks about what she owns, what she's earning.
Right.
It's simply where she works.
Okay.
So that's a lot of, so we aren't, the law is not looking for spouses unless they're tied in co-ownership.
And children, too.
Same with dependent children. So, yes.
Dependent children.
We're only talking dependent children. Adult children, they're off and they're on their own.
But that was a lot of concerns I heard at this.
Well, they still show up in the immediate family ones for the other conflict of interest issues. Your non-dependent children.
But
Well,
parents,
conflict of
including your
interest, yes.
siblings.
You can't
But
be
so do
sitting on.
parents and so do
Right.
siblings.
Yeah.
Right,
But
right.
we're talking, there's a
Conflict
very,
of interest, it's,
we have to draw that line between financial disclosure over here and conflicts of interest over here. And you're right.
so maybe I was misinterpreting something. So for the elected official, we have to disclose property wherever owned, where we work, we have to do a financial disclosure. But for like a spouse, we say, okay, she works at XYZ, and then that's pretty much it, unless there's a co-ownership of
And
something.
then you don't mention her name, all it asks is, what do you own? And it so happens that she's the co-owner, you know, property that she owns is going to appear on your financial disclosure statement as your property. So her name doesn't, in fact, her name doesn't even show up. Just, does you have a spouse who works? Where does she work? Where does she earn income from? One last thing, and I talked to Dick about this the other day, and one of my staff talked to him, I believe, a little bit further, is there's some value information that people don't like. The value of my stocks. I don't like to disclose that I own, $115,000 worth of some stock. The commission, we have a paper disclosure form, and about 8 years ago, we went to electronic. You can go on our electronic website, and they changed what needs to be disclosed. It still satisfies, and this is purely interpretational for your ethics commission, but we now, online, people just disclose values of things in ranges. Like I own stock between $5,000 and $10,000, or between this and that. And so it's a little less, I mean, well, I guess you could do between 0 and 999,000, but I'm thinking that might be a little strong, or larger range. But the point is, that's another way to maybe alleviate some of the concerns about absolute specificity out there.
But it still is on the public record.
Well,
Still,
somebody has to
all
come.
somebody has to do is walk to that window in there and say, I want Bob King's financial records, and I'm gonna open up the Carroll County Times tomorrow, and I'm gonna read about my lack of a valid, here I am I'm handling the town's money.
Because you're worth X number of dollars.
Right. But I'm handling the town's money, and I don't even know how to invest myself.
I was assuming you were gonna be rich, Bob, but I guess you can go another way.
Bob, you'll at least get notice before it hits the paper, because
now, you do get notified.
That somebody came and asked for it.
Came and asked for my financial records.
Well, one thing that was interesting, not that this bears on what we're talking about, except 2 years ago, the General Assembly was seriously considered and nearly passed a law that said that financial disclosure statements didn't need to just be available here for people to come in, because they have to come to our office to get members of the General Assembly and state employees to file, but to put it out there on the internet. And some of these, that was going to be, well, it didn't go. And it seems like it's lost some momentum, but, so I guess I put that.
That is your social security number, and we have identity theft running rampant in this country right now, and
well, you are urged.
You're gonna go out and look for a rich person, and then that's whose identity you're gonna steal.
Well, I'll tell you what,
We're putting our data out there.
one other thing in terms of making it a little easier, again, I don't know if it's any less informative, but folks that own a lot of stocks have been known to attach to their financial disclosure, it's kind of see attached, and they put a year-end statement, and a lot of local ethics agencies have said that's okay, but when you do that, you want to scrub it of any information that might have your account number, your social,
Yeah, but it says exactly what you've got.
Well, it does do that.
And that's,
So tell me,
that's nobody's business.
you've heard, so again, in the context of
thank you, Peter.
this ordinance, in the context
Somebody
of this
understands what I'm
ordinance
saying.
seriously affecting the number of people who might want to run. You've heard these concerns.
Yeah, the commission's heard them, and the General Assembly.
So, okay, so, and you're just saying that there's a possibility for an exception if, in the determination, it will seriously affect the ability to attract candidates to office.
Well,
And I know you've gone over those lists
right.
of money and stuff like that, but nevertheless, that's the core of the issue.
The General Assembly, and well, first of all, the General Assembly's heard that, but the commission had a particular municipality come before it, I believe, in May, with affidavits, actually before May, probably March meeting, and said, we're not going to get people to run. We have an election in May. People have decided not to run, and they had not gotten approved a law yet. I guess they had gotten approval, but they wanted to back it off and have these very issues that you're concerned about removed from their law as well. So the commission has heard that. The commission said, we understand, but the law basically says that if the size isn't small enough to warrant it, the rest of those considerations, you look at size first. And so when you get down to the smaller size entities, then you look to say, okay, now we'll have an impact on people running. Is it going to somehow not run contrary to the intention of the law? I guess what I'm saying to you is, I mean, I've heard it, the commission's heard it, and it's not that they're insensitive, but the commission is of the view that right now, been 3 attempts to try to get the General Assembly to change it. It hasn't succeeded, so the commission feels that it's kind of run a pretty good course. Almost 62 municipalities have gotten it approved without these kind of exemptions, so I just don't think it's going to change.
All right, there was one other issue that we raised with our Ethics Commission that got kicked back, and that was the issue of something that you go to the Ethics Commission with and disclose it with them, but ask that specific thing because of embarrassment or because of who knows what. You know, in this region, you know, maybe you work for the CIA, you have property that's held for activities in Venezuela that's not supposed to be public knowledge. I don't know. We don't know what it would be, but go to the Ethics Commission, say, look, here it is, look at this. This shouldn't be public information, and them have a right to say, yes, we've looked at this. We agree. That should not be public information.
And that was a problem, too.
And that was, and we felt that that was somewhat of an essential need. And obviously that got kicked back. We thought that was a fairly reasonable request.
They're gonna have to get rid of that CIA.
Kicked back by the Ethics Commission, not by
Came
the-
back from state, did not our guys. I mean, I think our guys, I think were, our Ethics Commission locally, I think was fine with that.
Again, I can tell you, remember that equivalent to means equivalent to, and so the commission's position is, it says the documents filed will be publicly available, and there's no leeway built into the current law to authorize our commission to say that to any of our 14,000 filers, that, yeah, you can do that. So unless and until it becomes a change to the law that governs us all, to be equivalent to, that provision wouldn't satisfy. And I understand, as you sit there, you're thinking, we're being eminently reasonable. Why aren't you listening? And all I can tell you is,
it's not you.
And well, I don't want to be like Pontius Pilate here either. I mean, our commission has heard it, and they're interpreting it, well, not interpreting, they're applying the law as they've been charged with doing. And so, again, I don't want to. If you're going to beat up on my commission, you can beat up on me too, because I'm in with them completely. But and I'm just going to say the General Assembly has some reasons and good reasons, but I think that's where it needs to be addressed.
What are those reasons?
Well,
one second. All you guys that raised your hands before, would having to disclose all this information affect your ability or your decision to run for a future office in Mount Airy? Hold your hand up.
That's a pretty good number.
Well,
I think the question you need to ask is, you asked us to hold our hands up. These folks that you're asking themselves are volunteers.
Right.
Who volunteer their time, their effort to our town.
Right.
Will those folks also have to disclose this information? I may not necessarily want to run for office, but I want to continue on to volunteer. Do I have to disclose that? That's my question.
the change in the law that we've been discussing applies to elected local officials.
Right.
That's who's effective, whether they're paid or volunteer. If they're elected to their position and they're running the government, the law applies to them. To everybody else, the typical thing that a smaller government puts in is a requirement that for other officials,
Conflict of interest.
if they have a conflict of interest that's specifically coming into play with some decision they're about to make, they've got to disclose it. So if I'm about to sign off on a contract, and a company that my brother heads up is going to gain from that, then yeah, I'd have to disclose it. But you don't have to disclose all your property. You don't have to disclose all your financial holdings. None of that. And the other time you got to make a disclosure besides when a conflict comes up. And I'm thinking there's one other occasion. Do you remember, Dick, off the top of your head?
Gifts?
But yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, gifts. And if you get a gift during the year, you got to disclose a gift. Other than that, and it's only a gift from somebody who's doing business with your state or your jurisdiction. So for most of you, the problem or the issue is
Right, the financial disclosure is no more than it has been in the past.
Right,
Okay,
that's
the
exactly
forms
right.
that-
It hasn't
the
changed.
forms you've had to fill out every year, but when you take the next step up, You have to disclose everything.
And
You actually have to
that- but
disclose to
now-
run, not
run,
to,
yes.
Candidates
not
do.
what's
This doesn't-
elected.
Run.
In order to run, you have to
Within 10
disclose.
days
Then
of
once you're elected,
nomination.
you have to disclose every year.
But that's a
Right.
decision that you make
Right.
when you decide to
To
step
run.
into the public arena.
I think that's, frankly, that probably encapsulates what I think the General Assembly's view is, recognizing there's two levels, pretty broad distinction, but I think that's exactly what the General Assembly looks at it as.
What, that you give away your right to privacy?
Well,
You're handling the public's money.
yeah, basically.
But there's no disagreement here on anything other than limiting the scope. And if, David, if you want to disclose everything, please, by all means, file. Disclose everything.
I have no problem.
Right, but my concern is that folks who do have,
And-
I have a privacy concern, and my concern is for folks who come after this that have privacy concerns,
And-
and they will be dissuaded from running for office because they didn't sign up to give
And-
away their privacy.
And again, that is the decision that you make as an individual, that whether you want to run for office, this is what is required of you, and if you do not want to run for office, if you want to keep your privacy, then don't run for office.
All right, Mr. Lord, we, one,
Don't want your privacy, or you don't.
just one option that we had looked at, which was an attempt to somewhat limit this down, was one option we had looked at is when it came to personal stock holdings.
5%.
Yeah, was a percentage. If, you have to own more than a certain percentage of public traded stocks, with the feeling that, there's nothing I can do here that's going to affect, the shares of General Motors. Our one truck that we buy every couple of years, General Motors doesn't even notice that on their bottom line. There's nothing we can do here at this level that's going to affect any of those. So the thought was, yes, if you own more than 5% or 10% of a publicly traded stock, you would report that. Or if you own shares of some other stock, you would report that. But any, minor shares you have of some publicly traded stock, you don't have to disclose. That was an option that we floated around.
Yeah, I think I saw that in a draft. I can only tell you that, again, if you read the state law that this has to be equivalent to, it says the statement shall include a statement of each interest held by the individual, not the individual spouse, by the way, in a corporation, partnership, limited liability partnership, or limited liability company, whether or not the corporation, partnership, et cetera, does business with the state. It doesn't say just interest above 5%. And so to be equivalent to, the key word is equivalent. And that's the big change that we're all
Yeah,
dealing
but it
with.
says the state, we're not the state.
Right,
The
but
state can affect the price of General Motors stock.
Well, but what the commission, so what happened is you take that provision, you substitute for state, and you put down a municipality. But that's what they're talking about when they're looking for equivalence.
Tom, you just made a substitution where it's not equivalent to now. Now you zoned it down to
State
municipality.
municipal unequivalent.
If you're gonna zone one, you have to do all.
Well, I guess you can argue with me that we shouldn't have pulled out state, but the whole law is geared towards the state.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
Understand, but if the law just changed, though, and certainly if we were to ignore that.
We're not asking you to ignore it.
Or if we
We're
didn't
asking you to
substitute.
reconsider it.
Interpret it.
Interpretation.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with you on the interpretation aspect. You're supposed to disclose property you own, wherever owned.
Agreed. Well,
Wherever owned,
when you
that's-
say wherever you own, wherever located, anywhere.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't specify located anywhere. I asked you that and you said, well, it's open to interpretation.
Well, I suggest there's not a lot to interpret, but it's not our call. But I know I've taken a lot of your time.
I agree with you on that
and
one. Everywhere's everywhere.
You might.
It didn't say everywhere,
Yeah,
it said
anywhere.
anywhere.
I'm here for as long as you want me, but I know there's more to do
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah, I think we
I
probably
appreciate
do
you
need
answering
to
the
move on.
questions.
I do appreciate you coming out here.
It just sounds like it's not.
I guess my 2 cents, I actually voted for the last 2 losing ordinances. Unfortunately, after our discussions, I'm less likely to vote for the next one. I mean, just to be all honest with you, I was the only person who voted for both of the 2 previous options. And I just.
Which means you were
So it was really a fruitful appearance tonight, wasn't it?
But I appreciate, the situation you're in. You're just doing what the state told you to do.
Yeah. And again, I don't want anybody to suggest I'm thinking that the state's decision to do it this way is wrong. All I'm saying is we aren't in the
You're
mode of
enacting the
passing the
you're
law, we're
entitled to.
implementing.
Before you leave, what will happen if we do not come up with some type of agreement
Since we've
Bye.
lost another vote.
before our next meeting?
For the state's next meeting.
Before the state's next meeting?
Dick warned me that that might be a question.
It's subject to interpretation.
I think you probably do know that the law has one alternative for the State Ethics Commission, which says basically in order to implement this for municipalities or boards of ed or counties that don't comply, the state's remedy currently is simply to file a lawsuit. We haven't done that before. The commission certainly doesn't want to do that, and the commission has been asked that question earlier on, and yet we've progressed to the point, as I said, as of Thursday, we'll have 62 of 73 on board. So our hope is.
Well, but you waived another 70-something. So of
But
156.
the ones that have, the ones in your situation, I think that's important to say.
Right, but you decided who to waive. I mean, that was, I don't think the legislature didn't set some number. You
No,
kind of came up with
The commission
that on
applied
your own.
that, but now it's done it, and it'll be 62 cases.
Right.
And it was at a much lower population level than this, so I would say you're not a good candidate
But the
for it.
legislature didn't say, here's the waiver limit. You guys did that.
Legislature said, here's what we want these disclosures in the same way it's disclosed in state law, and if the population warrants it, then there's some authority to.
I'm sorry. You said you're not a good candidate. I mean,
I'm just telling you based on the experience of 68 others.
Based on your prior decisions.
Well, commission's prior decisions,
Right.
yes.
All right.
Because you're at
We'd be in
9,000.
violation-
Let's get back to the
It
question
would be a
of what
violation of
happens.
the
We get
law,
sued?
or you
We
would,
get sued.
you would enact an ordinance for us. Is that correct?
No,
get
that
sued.
doesn't even exist. We don't
Okay.
have the authority to do that.
Comply or be sued?
I think I guess we'd hope that, talking to your constituents, you'd decide which way to go, and we hope it would be the way of complying, because frankly, filing a lawsuit, it's there, and I suppose in the right case, it would be done, but that's not what I didn't want to leave here, or don't want to leave here with this threat that we're going to be running a court on October 2nd. But at some point, let's say, this process has been going on for a long time, and we're hoping maybe we can keep working with you. And I know you're thinking, well, work with us. You've just told us in absolute terms, here's what you need.
As you can see, we are trying. We are trying to understand, we are trying.
Yeah, no, you are trying.
Where's the work with?
And I'll pass that to the commission, and as I said, we're not about to march into court. Let's say that. And as I said, I think maybe talking to your constituents, talking it out among yourself, deciding, I'd suggest call a couple other entities that may seem to be in the same boat as you, because, 62 have gotten on board, and they all didn't do so happily. I mean, I can tell you that. But it's the state law, and I suppose my suggestion is it would be helpful if you decided to comply with the
I think the
law.
state's trying to create a class of professional politician. And they want to get rid of anybody who's, I mean, I know you can't, but I think that this is written for a professional politician who generates all his money and all of his income and has everything in the
And
state.
anybody that knows me knows I'm not a professional politician.
But I mean, that's nothing to do with you,
Yeah,
but
but
that's
let's
what
say
it
you've
sort
all-
of looks like on its face.
You've all been very gracious, really. I know we have a disagreement, and I know you're not happy, but I want to thank you for
Thank
treating
you.
me kindly.
Thank you very
Nobody
much.
threw tomatoes, and
We do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now you know what Dick is up against, showing up at the meetings every day.
he's a volunteer.
They do this to me every month, so. Michael, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come out here and address the town council. And I just want to say that the next step for the Ethics Commission is we have this October 1st certification requirement. And so I have to send a letter to the state saying that unfortunately, we're unable to certify at this time, and pretty much leave it at that. And if you'd be so kind as to relay back, prime the pump.
Yeah, because we don't even have anything for us at the moment.
And I suggest that what we need to do post haste is to figure out a way to determine what the consensus of the council is and how we're going to address the issues as clarified by Michael here. So that's kind of our objective. But I will be sending a letter to the state saying, thank you for the opportunity to certify, but no thank you, we can't do that at the time.
But we're not there yet.
All right.
Tell us you're still working on it, that helps.
Yeah.
We're still working.
Dick, can you email around again, because I had it months and months ago, the sample,
Model B?
the disclosure form.
Sample disclosure.
Oh,
Because I
okay.
remember just to see what it was like, I decided to fill that out. Mine was like 14 pages long, and my kids and my wife don't have jobs, so those were forms I didn't even put in there. So my form was shorter than everybody else's. Mine was 14 pages.
I can do that, but what I also did, and I think his name is Tim McCormick, I have from him screenshots of the online form with the drop-down boxes that show the ranges.
Okay.
And when Michael's talking about, the implementation of that, we could use something along those lines to bring ranges in there so you're not specifically saying I have X value of stock or the property is worth Y value that I'm disclosing. The other interesting thing is that, to clarify, if you understood all that, all the mutual funds are out, including, I guess, the retirement plans. So, and it's only assets held in partially or totally in, so that excludes spouse or dependent children that would
Right, 'cause I
have
think the
sole
form we
ownership.
filled out asked for more data.
It did.
Than what he's telling us we need. So the
It-
form may not be as bad as what we
It did.
sampled.
It did.
Right.
So it's worth a look, but I'm going to say, when Michael was talking about the drop-down boxes, I have that, and what we've done in the past is the Ethics Commission will come up with like a draft, and before we implement the disclosure, we send it to the council members just for their input and review. And that's how the process worked in the past, and that's how we intend to do it in the future. Okay?
Thank you. Thanks for both of you.
much.
All right, up next, the other hot topic. Ordinance 2013-4, it's the ordinance to amend section 112-6 for continuance of non-conforming uses. Somebody want to move this?
I'll move it.
Do we have a second?
I will move it. Now, I want some clarification
You want to
first.
move it with your...
If I move it with the revisions and the revisions cause a problem, can I just step back and move it without the revisions?
You certainly can.
Okay,
I will certainly allow
I do
that.
it that way. I will move it with the revisions first.
Do we have a second?
Bob, is that the revisions in red?
The revisions in red that
We got today.
Tom and Pat and I went over this weekend.
Guys,
Right.
first question, do we have a second? For lack of a second, the ordinance fails.
Okay, so I'll back it off and
You wanna-
offer without the revisions.
As we had it on
As
the
we
table.
originally got it.
Do we have a second on that? For lack of a second, the ordinance fails.
That's it, it's done.
That's it.
Next.
All right.
Is there any discussion, even though
Unless it's on the table, it doesn't get discussed.
Doesn't get
I mean,
discussed.
We did have an open forum on it. Ordinance
It has to be
2000
second to discuss.
Ordinance 2013-5, water allocation ordinance. That's here for introduction and to set a public hearing. Chris, do you want to introduce it since it's water? Or does Scott want to do it because it's, it's probably you,
I'll
Chris.
introduce it, and you can second out.
Well, it doesn't need a second, just needs an introduction.
I'll introduce the
Okay.
ordinance.
Scott is introducing ordinance 2013-5. We need to set a public hearing date. Do you want to do it
Public hearing.
next council meeting? Do you think we're going to need 15 minutes or a half hour?
Remember, that's a short one. Wait a minute, let me count my days. 'Cause we only have 3 weeks now to the next council meeting.
Is that long enough? I mean, we
Well,
can...
I have to advertise in 2 consecutive weeks.
Okay.
So let me just, give me a second. Oh, it's not until the 7th. I can get in right away. I'll be all right.
Okay, so
October.
do you think we need a half hour like the last one or 15 minutes like we normally do? Half hour? So 7 to 7:30 for the public hearing.
October 7th.
October 7th. Everybody okay with everybody?
fine.
Next council meeting? All right. Next up, budget amendment, Department of Public Works project. That's probably a Barney issue. Why do I have 4 copies of the mayor's report?
These are all yours. Yeah, I got that one.
Tony, we're on the Department of Public Works.
This is for the money that we did not spend. We're not adding anything that we didn't already have in the budget for last year. Just looking to move the $70,000 from last year to this year as a budget amendment for that.
Why? I hate these ordinances, I never know why.
Can we, do you mind, or do you, I have a few questions, Chris, I mean.
Well, let me say this, I will move in, or,
It's got to be
make sure I read the number right.
2013-12.
2013-12, I will move that. Somebody want to second it, then we can discuss it?
Sure, second.
Okay, we got Scott second. Now, David, go ahead.
Can you give us a description of this project? Because I had no recollection of it.
Yeah. The biggest thing on here is the office improvements for the existing maintenance shop. So this was a 4-year project where we started with the salt shed, then we went to the foundation of the new maintenance building, and we constructed the new maintenance building, did some stormwater management, other site improvements.
So this piece right here, I understand, okay, dealing with the maintenance building, this piece right here, what does this piece do?
So now that all that's constructed, this goes back, which was part of the 4-year plan, was to go back to the original building that was built 30 years ago and redo the offices, add a break room for the guys, and enhance the map room and stuff like
Okay,
that.
how long is this phase expected to take? From like, if we authorize this tonight,
Right.
from now until end, how long do you see this as taking?
The design's already been submitted to, and a permit requested from the Carroll County. We haven't gotten that permit yet. So once we get that permit and move forward, most likely this will be completed during the winter time.
Okay, so again, how many months do you see this as taking?
I would say use the whole fiscal year, because we're going to use more of the winter months.
You see, because what I'm trying to get at is why, did we discuss this during the budgeting cycle? Did we discuss that this was not going to be completed in the 2012, 2013, and we needed to rebudget it for this year's money?
Yeah, I don't know if we knew that.
Because I guess my question.
We were working on a design at that time.
Okay,
so I
because
didn't-
my concern is, okay, we had this budgeted for 2012, 2013. You're telling me that you think that this is going to take an entire fiscal year to get from point A to point B. At some point during the budgeting cycle, we should have known that this project was not going to be completed. And we should have, at that point in time, during budgeting, moved this forward. Because granted, I understand that 2012, 2013, we did not spend this money, and it's probably sitting out in the coffers still. But now we're doing a budget amendment, and we're actually adding money to the 2013, 2014 budget. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right, but it's the same money that we didn't pull from reserves to spend. That same money is still sitting there in reserves.
But what I'm trying to say, what I'm suggesting is, we spent things during this past budget cycle. There were monies expended, and there were comments made that, hey, while we've got the money, let's spend it. And we've got this $70,000 sitting out there that was 2012, 2013 money that didn't get spent, so it goes back into reserves. Now we're pulling it back out again. And no, I understand. It was budgeted. It's back. So I guess my concern is, from a budgeting standpoint, we need to have more knowledge. If money is not going to get spent in a current fiscal year, we need to basically know that so that we can either A, move it forward at at the budgeting time, or we say, okay, maybe this project wasn't really necessary, maybe we should look at killing it. Because now we're looking at possibly, we've had other things come up on the horizon that we may end up having to pay. So, I mean, my concern with this is it wasn't completed in the fiscal year. Now we're moving it forward and plussing up this budget. So, I mean, I'll let somebody else have a...
Does the project need to be done?
That's what I want to know.
I gave, it's hard for me to explain it now, but
I mean,
I gave a
I've been in-
presentation of why that office, why they need a break room. They sit on,
They sit
chairs,
out in-
buckets.
Yeah.
They
been
don't
there.
have a
I've
break
been there.
room per se, they don't have a kitchen per se. This was to give them, a place to be able to come out of a snowstorm, be able to get, heat your food up, that kind of thing. Right now, they store all their water parks in the same place that they have their refrigerator.
Right.
They sit in a bay that's not enclosed, so not heated and stuff the same way that an office or a break room should be heated. They're sitting in a bay. Now, I mean, there's a lot bigger presentation that was done 4 years ago, but, I could redo the presentation if you want me to, but I think it's needed. I think that's something you owe to these guys, to at
Right.
least give them that.
Yeah, and I've walked in there at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and you got a bunch of guys sitting on buckets.
Right.
Okay, and Brett in the office, it's a very small office.
When it snows,
Now-
they sleep in there.
Right.
Right. Now, I will
I've been
say,
there.
at the beginning of May, we were still pushing
in there?
to
No, but I've
try
been
to
there when
get
they
this
were
done.
sleeping
Now, we're not hiring contractors to do most of the work. We're gonna do most of the work ourselves. So, the idea is, what we were trying to get everything approved permit-wise and order materials. Once we have those materials on hand, it didn't have to be done by June 30. We at least have spent, what we needed to spend.
Can you give me an idea of what the materials are? 70K is a lot of material.
There's,
Existing
all the building
spec.
materials, building walls, putting,
Concrete
floors
studs,
in.
electrical, HVAC.
Yeah, everything. There's
That's
some
70
plumbing,
grand.
there's HVAC, there's electrical.
Oh, easy.
I mean, it's like doing a fit out of a building, you already have the shell.
How much do you think it costs to remodel a bathroom? Probably 20,000.
10K.
That's 10K, depends on how you're doing it.
But the point is
It's a
that,
5x7 room.
the point is that, especially during snowstorms,
Small
that
bathroom.
these guys have no proper place to rest and recuperate.
Right.
And you just said they sleep there?
Yeah, when we have one of those nasty snowstorms,
They
they
come in and
move
sleep
in.
there?
Right.
Okay,
They live there.
okay.
When we had that one a couple years ago, when we had like for a week, we had a couple big snows, they basically lived there.
Yeah, they just feel constant, don't fall asleep.
Yeah, I mean, they, if they get pulled off the road because it gets real snowy, they'll go in there and crash for an hour or two, and then they hit the road again.
I suggest we call a question.
Any other comments? All right, all in favor of ordinance 2013-12, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, moving on to ordinance 2013-13. That's here for introduction, revisions to the property maintenance ordinance, which is essentially what we would call our blight ordinance. I will move that in. I don't see any reason why that would need to go to planning.
For property maintenance ordinance?
So, so
You want to send?
that'll be back up next month. It's a blight ordinance, it's really not.
It's an adjunct to our existing property maintenance code, section of our code.
Scott, you think
That's
planning?
not a planning thing.
Okay.
I mean,
No.
Well, does it amend
I'm just
112
introducing it,
or?
yeah.
Yes, it
Does
amends
not.
our
So
existing-
then I don't think it needs to go to.
No.
Yeah, Scott.
If I could just give you all something to take home and think about. In a nutshell, this allows us to act on blighted properties before they rise to the level of endangering public health. And just so you know, at the Maryland Municipal League, we had a class.
We took, I think you and I both took that class.
And I think
Yeah,
Scott was there, all three of
yeah,
us.
yeah, we all took a
There was
class on
probably
this.
100 attendees in this class, and when we were asked to raise our hand, who didn't have a blight ordinance, it was Mount Airy and one other municipality, so we really do need this.
But you don't have an ethics ordinance either.
We don't have a historic ordinance either.
We got one, it's just not up to date. We got an ethics ordinance, it's just not up to date.
All right, well, it's been introduced, it'll be on the agenda next month. Ordinance 2013-14, that is the fog ordinance, fats, oil, and grease.
I'd like to move
That's
that.
coming from Chris, so you just want to introduce it?
I'd like to move in fats, oil, and grease.
All right, you've heard about the rain tax, we're going to control fog.
Yeah, I mean, as far as fats, oil, and grease, actually, we have one of our members of the Water and Sewer Commission here this evening can answer questions if there are any.
Hi. Yep, well, you gave us a presentation before on this.
Yeah, they did.
Question.
Any questions, any?
I don't have any questions. Probably next month is when we're going to get.
Oh, come on up anyway.
Next month is when you're going to get nailed with questions.
Okay, all right, there we go.
But thank you for being here, thank you for all your hard work. This
We're
is
here
a
for
needed
introduction this month, we'll vote on it next month, that's when everybody's going to have all their
And
questions.
just so everybody knows, the lack of having one of these ordinances or some kind of regulations has resulted in some damage.
In damage, yes.
Yes,
And,
substantial.
well, and I think, were there insurance payouts too?
Oh, yeah.
I think the town paid out, well, the town's insurer paid out,
Oh,
so.
yeah.
Yes. So we need to get this fixed.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Up next, Charter Amendment Resolution 2013-4. That's one I put forward. It's a charter amendment which technically we can vote on tonight being a charter amendment. But the real key to this was, we've hit on a problem quite a few times where it says that you have 60 days to adopt something. The design behind that was that you would get 2 council meetings after the one that it came up at. Well, what we found, of course, is that calendar didn't work that way.
4th of July, Labor Day.
Right now.
Yeah.
If we do something now and 60 days will be, too far
If you have
out.
a 30-day month and a 31-day month, and the way they could fall.
It ends up going beyond the 60
5
days, and
weeks.
the ordinances end up, it's happened a few times, where an ordinance, was supposed to be done in 60 days, couldn't be done in 60 days because the council meeting was on the 61st day, it didn't work. So this basically just changes those times to 75 days, which really meets the intent.
Peter, I'll second.
Well, what I want to do, only because I followed this policy in the past with ordinance, with charter amendments, to me, I have a problem with us bringing something up, putting it forward to the public, and voting on it the same night. I would like us to table this tonight and actually vote on it next month. So if anybody wants to look at it or think about it, for me, it's just a policy provision. We can technically vote on it.
There's nothing pressing that's going to.
There's nothing
Change
pressing.
something from 60 to 75, I mean, we can wait.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I read it.
I've just done this in the past with charter amendments. I like to give the public 30 days to look at them.
Sure.
This one, I don't expect any issues.
One issue,
All right.
typo, regular.
Okay.
Spelled wrong in the second sentence.
Yeah,
Debbie, we
that's
got a
on that.
typo on that one? The word
Unless
regular,
we're using Spanish.
No, that's the
Spanglish.
French spelling, not regular.
Regular.
Problem?
Second sentence.
in 2013, or
Dash
Charter
4.
2013-4.
Oh, it's regular.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Okay, well,
So what else we got?
that is actually being tabled till next month.
Awesome.
When I anticipate we'll probably vote on it with no problem. All right, unfinished business, update on the Flatiron Building.
So I just put this on the agenda because we can't let this one die. I mean, I've seen things before where we've talked about it and we've looked at costs and then we didn't make a decision. And I'm not suggesting we make a decision this evening, but I mean, I guess I was looking for some council thought on where we're going with this. So,
And also, if I could add, we really should make a decision on where we're going, because if we want to reach out to our delegation or senators and possibly get some bonds underwritten, we need to have a focus on where we're going.
right, and I mean, the other context for the discussion too is, I mean, we're talking a lot about a community center as well. So, at some point, I think we have to align what the community needs are. Are we going to do community center or not? Are we going to fund it or not? But at some point, as we well know from the the discussion. Flatiron Building's gonna collapse on its own weight if we don't do something at some point. So, I mean, do we know, just open.
Open
question.
discussion,
Open
consensus.
discussion, do we know what
I
we're
was,
gonna do?
I was pleased to see, the Historic Commission saying that they weren't tied to the building. As much as I like the building there, I'm one of the few people who lives in this 2 blocks. Because, my office is 2 blocks away, and so I'm here every day walking up and down the street. The Flatiron Building is really an impediment to the flow of people, traffic, and everything else on this street. It's, as much as I love the building, and, history is what I love, I mean, that's my degrees in, and I don't want to see the building come down. I really, it was supposed to be torn down in the 1950s, that's why we bought it. I would opt for, taking it down, building something similar, pushed back as the plans show, closing center, making that plaza there, and actually making parking and cleaning up the street. Something along these lines. I mean, we decided on the building side.
So keeping the same basic design to mimic, but expanding on it?
But expanding on it, and moving it back so that we actually get a wider street there. David, why don't we just go around the table, see what everybody has to say? I mean, if you had no comment on it, I'm just kind of consensus where we are.
I think I made my comments when we talked the other night, or when we talked about this. I'm looking at it from sort of a dollars and cents. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have a tie to that building too. I briefed my Eagle Scout project to the Parks and Rec Commission in that building. So, I mean, that was town hall when I lived here. But I look at, $500,000, and they couldn't give us a sure figure of how long that $500,000 would buy us. Would it buy us 5 years? Would it buy us 10 years? How long would it buy us? And then I look, at the next, where we're talking, I think it was about 2.6 million for a high-end, building. So I'm looking, okay, you're talking a little bit less than, 25%, and we're going to get a brand-new building that's going to last us a while. And, I've talked with some of the citizens of the town, and, they've said it would be a shame to lose that building, but then I explained to them that, okay, we're talking about putting over $500,000 into it, and they can't tell us how long we're going to get. At least with the money, if we chose the more expensive option, we get a brand new building. We could control to a certain extent how that building looks. So if we can keep some of the architectural flair, and we can improve upon it, I mean, I'm leaning more towards the newer.
Scott?
So, I don't have the plan in front of me, but seeing the numbers, looking over Dave's shoulder a second ago, I think I can agree with the fact that not knowing a timeline for how much this buys is a question, because are we throwing good money after bad? The building only lasts 2 or 3 years. Why do we just spend that money? We could have spent it better buying a new building. I too don't want to see something historically ripped down just for the sake of ripping it down, but if the trade-offs for taking the building down, using something similar, the look, style, materials, fixing problems that we've had with the streets, etc., it makes logical sense that we would want to do something like that for the people so that the town will actually be able to function better. So I would be for a newer building versus just throwing money out that I don't know what it's buying me.
Pat?
I share Councilman Belk's comments that I'd like to maintain the historic integrity, a similar building, but to make it more functional. So probably for enlarging it somewhat.
Oh, yeah, you can want to enlarge it because if you build the same size, it's of limited use. The building is right now really limited use.
Enlarge it, keep the same flavor, and look at some redesign. There's some huge impediments happening.
Chris?
So,
And look at bonding and financing.
my thoughts are along the same line as what's been expressed. 2 questions. One is, where are we going to get the money?
Yeah, although we need it either way.
Well, we need some,
We need money either way.
we need something, all right. So let's assume the consensus seems to be moving towards, again, we haven't heard from Bob, the consensus seems to be moving towards replacing the structure with something larger. One, where do we get the money? Number two, how are we going to use the space? I mean, how are we really going to use the space? So if the consensus is moving towards a larger building, I think it would behoove us to ask staff to study, come back to us and tell us, okay, how are we really going to use the space? I mean, conceptually, we saw plans about meeting and space and whatnot upstairs, yet, of course, we have meeting space available over at the library, at the library on the Carroll side. And then there's, some discussion about retail on, the lower space. I'm not sure we should be in the business of retail, but, if we're moving in that direction, how are we going to pay for it and what are we going to do with it? That's what I really want to know. Hence, which is where I'm trying to drive this conversation.
Well, I got my second lesson in history tonight. The first one was several months ago when we first discussed the Flatiron Building, and I was shocked to find that nobody was married to the building, I think was the term. And tonight, when I couldn't even get a second on the historic ordinance, so...
Shocked as well.
Shocked as well. So, tear it down. Build whatever we want. 2.5 million, I don't care. Tear it down.
Okay. Chris, I guess you put on the agenda. Have we given you your answer?
Yeah, I think we get an answer. So, I mean, at this point, I think I'd like to look towards staff, and not that you guys don't have enough to do with the master plan coming up. Clearly, we recognize the master plan takes priority. But seeing there's some consensus for removing the building and getting something larger, okay, how are we going to use it? How would we use it? I mean, I think that's a more important question before we move towards money considerations. And we know some folks have been working on, the concept of community center, so maybe that can be brought in as well. I know there's some folks here that are working on that, but I think once we have a better concept of how we might use the space, then how we might get funding becomes more relevant.
It's very logical, because before we could think about applying for any grants, we would need to see the elements of
Right.
Yeah, we need a plan.
Well, I seem to recall that probably the next step in the process, and Barney, you might remember if this is true or not, is we need to have that place surveyed, because we don't know exactly how much property, where our property ends, where our property stops, to know what can be done there.
So
We really don't know how much, how much land we have there to work
So the
with.
good thing is, we're not spending any money yet.
Well, the question is, if we're going to ask for a survey, how are we going to pay for the survey?
Right.
And the 50,000 got us what?
The 50,000 got us the concept drawings.
But can staff not, I mean, the survey defines the legal boundaries. Can the staff, I mean, I would think without spending money at this point, staff would come up with conceptually looking at plats, hey, here's what we think the space that we have.
Yeah, the line runs somewhere halfway up the hill.
Yeah.
Up where that cliff is, we think we own it somewhere along the top half of that.
Right, but at this point, we're not, I don't think I'm advocating doing a legal survey and going that far. It's conceptually, staff could look at the plats and whatnot and say, okay, here's the approximate volume that we have to work with, here's what we would do with the space, and then we move from there.
But the staff also needs a vision from this council, and as far as, we talked about community center, and we need more input from the council as to what they want to see. We're arranging a field trip. So as we move forward with these proposals, Flatiron Building, possibly a combination community center, possibly another community center, another site, it's really not for the staff to give the council the vision, it's for the vision to give the council their vision of what they would want to see.
I would almost think that we need at some point to start sitting down and prioritizing all of these things. We have the Flatiron Building, we have a community center, we have Harrison Leisure, we have all of these things that are costing multi-million dollars to possibly do. And we have a limited amount of resources. At some point in time, we need to sit down and say, this is priority one, this is priority two. And I think at that point, we can give staff an idea, okay, if the Flatiron Building is number one, this is where we need them to work. If Harrison Leisure, or if the community center is number two, or if those are number one, we need to give an idea of this is where we're going with these projects.
So let me feed on that idea, and I don't mean to short circuit the community center and the work that's being done now. But if you look in practice, I think last time we checked, we had nominally 3.2 in reserve, something like that. Ballpark, $3 million, somewhere around there.
Reserves, we have 9.6 million,
But,
and only a small amount of that actually specifically reserved.
okay, let me withdraw that thought, then let me, along with what Dave's saying. If we think that, what becomes economical for us is, we've got to do something with the Flatiron Building, or it's gonna collapse, okay? That's an absolute, right? We know we have to do something. So if we're looking for a way to spend money cost effectively, my thought again is to take, how much can you do with the space with the concept of where the community center is, put those groups together and say, hey, can you make this work? Because then you're doing both Flatiron and Community Center together, and that becomes perhaps the most cost-effective way. Maybe. But, we gotta do something instead of continually.
Yeah, we do need direction, we do need a plan.
Right, but Pat, I understand it's the council's, your question back to the council is, what the vision is, and I would like to see community, again, tell us what we can possibly do, because the council, I think, primarily is worried about funding, at least I know I am.
I think it comes down to the bottom line. We have to define what a community center is, and we haven't gotten there yet.
Well, actually, what we're going to do before we go on the next scheduled field trip, we're going to have a charrette, whatever, where the YMCA actually has a program. I think Bill Butts, who's in the audience tonight, where you plug in what you want and it spits back the size you need, the amount it costs, and so we do plan to hold that workshop as part of our STEP process, and everyone at this table has received a copy of that STEP process. So that is coming. That part is coming.
All right, well, again, Peter, I'll sort of leave it as my thought when I put this on the agenda was to try to drive towards getting, the Flatiron, something has to be done, marry that up with the community center so it's possible to try to be cost effective. And again, not to subvert what the community center group is doing, but at some point,
Well, we did move a little closer as far as concept, because now we know that there's no desire just to repair the building as is. So that's
Right,
been
that
eliminated.
gets us closer.
That's been eliminated.
Another option is, we can bring in a developer, and basically in some type of, municipal business partnership, develop that, build that out. Basically, we get some space out of it, they manage it, they fill the bottom floor with tenants, and we're in there and we supply the land and they supply the dollars and make the money off of it.
Well, that is a model of the YMCA for one aspect of what we're looking
Well, basically the YMCA, you put everything up and put everything in, and then they run it for you.
pay you back.
And then they pay you back by running it.
Maybe not, you put everything in, there's several different models.
Okay.
There's several different models along the
I'm
same
talking
lines.
about somebody who
I know
maybe
we
build a
discussed the
building.
night that they came in, it was more of a, we provide all the capital and then they do the buyback. And it was
Right.
over an amount of years.
But the fit out, which is substantial, is generally supplied by them, but again, we have volumes and volumes of different
But
contracts.
this building would probably, from at least most of the plans we looked at, would have a whole floor of retail space.
Right.
Maybe more than one floor of retail space. That's something that,
In a
these
great
developers
economy,
here
in a great
know more of what to do with and how to build and how to construct.
Sure. In a great economy, that may work. We do have a lot of vacancies right now that we're trying to fill in.
Well, in downtown, we're doing pretty well.
We got this whole side of the town down here vacant. We got the Banksman sitting there. I know a lot of
Well,
that
that's
is
a
tied-
development issue. That's
But
not.
that's been resolved. And,
Yeah.
And we have the whole infill that's still, so there's some vacancies that, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say it's not, but I'm just saying, I don't know if it's something that's gonna happen
But-
in this economy.
Well, but the key is,
It would be best.
the town, because we've got the land and everything else, we might be able to make it cheap enough for somebody to want to do it.
Yeah, you always should look for a public-private partnership.
Right.
I agree.
All right, so I guess we're move on to the next
Before
thing.
we actually decide on that, Councilman, we didn't come up with a date where we're gonna know anything. We just said basically, we're visiting the community center. We're gonna go on this tour of a community center. So we've gotten away, we're saying the Flatiron Building is definitely vacant. We made that decision. Now-
I would
now
say
we've
the
gone over
consensus
community
was yes
center.
to that.
So what is it that we're actually doing with the Flatiron building? That would be a bigger question.
We're looking at where the boundaries actually are and
Yes, what are we doing?
We're gonna
with that?
focus, if I try to paraphrase, we're gonna focus more on the actual rebuilding in like size options that were presented to us. I don't think we wanna go with anything that tears down. And really, we got an option to rebuild it the way it was, increase it somewhat, increase its use, and a third option, just totally tear it down and build some monstrosity. And so we're going like in the middle.
So.
No, wait, no,
we're looking for the
Come
monstrosity.
back to the council.
You're going for the monstrosity.
Pete, I think
because you're
the
right.
No, I
point-
think everybody was along.
I think the point was, or at least,
The big one.
what I was hoping to direct staff
Am I
is,
correct?
what I was
I think
hoping to
everybody
direct
wants to know
staff
what the
is,
boundary is.
survey the size. If we go with a large building, tell us how we could use the space.
How much land do we have?
And
I
there's-
understand that portion. My question is this. As we go forward in the community center, and I refer to Mr. Blutz's, at the last planning and zoning meeting, he brought up again about the 2008 survey. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not necessarily in favor of a community center.
And sorry,
but-
Pete, we should have you up here just so you're on camera.
Okay, I can do that.
Did you read your civility book yet? That's what-
I'm gonna play your,
I got it in my pocket.
I'm gonna play your theme music while you walk to the
Thank you.
podium.
Pete Ballas, 401 Longbow. My question to the council is this. What I'm hearing tonight is, we've kind of branched away from the Flatiron Building and gone to the community center. In 2008, the community survey said the majority of the residents of our town wanted a community center. That's great that we've gone over there, and it's good that we're looking at making the community center in the modified new addition of the Flatiron Building. I'm really for that. But somewhere we have to have kind of a timetable where this is moving along in a flow. And we don't seem to have that. We pass that back to staff and go on from there. Yes, sir.
So I think to address your question.
Yes.
From a systematic perspective, there's a couple key factors that have to be defined. So we need to know what is the boundaries. We're asking staff for some potential uses. I heard that even if a community center is an option for this building.
Yes.
We need to see what is the expectation of the community center size versus what is the size of the building we have. Once all those variables are defined, then we can move forward with, okay, when is the building being modified, upgrade, torn down, replaced, et cetera, those next steps that you're asking for. So there's an investigation stage, if you will, that has
Yes.
to be done first before we can do the next step. You can't make a step without knowing what are you doing. And I think that's clearly what you're asking, is what are those steps to know what we're doing?
That
We
is
need to-
what I'm asking for. You're absolutely correct about that, but I'm also asking, are we coming back, is this going to be back on the agenda in March or July, or when will it be back on the agenda again? That's kind of a question I'm asking, because if we have an open timetable,
Yep.
we'll never find out.
Right,
And
Pete, so you know, we're agreed, and one of the reasons why I put it on the agenda is to start to move this forward. But
Yes.
one thing we do have to recognize right now is the priority of staff is the master plan. That, I mean, again, we're limited in resources, and staff is really pushed to the limit trying to do the master plan. So, I mean, what I was trying to encourage staff is that what Scott reiterated, hopefully how we can start to move this forward. But it's got to wait until staff is finished with the master plan, because they're frankly overwhelmed right now. It's not fair to throw it
Now,
past them for schedule.
in conjunction with staff doing it, like Chris said, there are other variables going on, such as, Bill Butts, yourself, et cetera, going and looking at what size community centers, how can we do these things, talking to developers. Those conversations can happen and come back. But as Chris said, staff's involvement, they're trying to get the master plan wrapped up before the end of the year. They've got 3 months to
Thank you,
finalize.
and I think we're putting a little too much on staff for them, again, to give us the vision. The elected officials at this table should be setting the vision. However they decide they want to get that vision, the elected people at this table need to get involved with the community and come back and hear from the community, not staff. That is not a staff function to tell us what we want. And so again, we're trying to do it, and I'm doing it more from a community center standpoint, and it didn't mean to overshadow this, but we're reaching out, we're trying to include the council in on field trips, we're trying to do a charrette. We're coming up with ideas. We need to do the same thing for the Flatiron Building. So I encourage someone at this table that was elected to do so, I know it's hard work. I know it's time consuming. This is what we signed up for when we got elected. So let's be the leaders here at this table, not look to the staff to be the leaders.
There's
Thank you.
one more community center field trip scheduled.
24th or 7th.
I've been to 2 community centers already.
Thank you.
And we're gonna plan to sit down with the YMCA, and they will plug things into their, which will give us some idea of what we need.
Sure.
And at that point, we'll sit down and say, okay, guys, here's what we need in a community center, yes or no? And if we
Will it
say,
fit at that location?
well, first, yes or no, and then the second question will be, will that fit there?
Well,
And if
Maybe we can
what
learn
I
from them
would
and
like to
apply
know-
that same formula to Flatiron.
It's sort of like what we talked about when we first started talking about the Flatiron Building. What is the size limit over here on these, on the plot?
Well, right. Well,
I mean, because
Well,
that's
we
really
said we
going to
need to know how big
drive
the
what type
property
of
is.
a building we can build there. I mean,
Not really.
Well, that's bad.
I mean, because, it's great that we can sit here and say we want 20,000 square feet, but if we can only put 10,000 square feet there, I mean.
Well,
That should have been, that's what we should have did first before we had a conceptual drawing. You don't conceptual draw on somebody else's property.
If I may,
I thought we knew this. Go ahead.
No, I know we don't.
we don't know exactly the boundary.
Not exactly.
where-
You're not even close as
We
well.
have an idea, but.
So my
I have an
question,
idea, that's what I want to
my
do.
question
Comes
goes
into
back,
it.
do we need a survey?
Yes.
And how much is a survey going to cost to run?
I think we do need a survey to know exactly our boundaries, but part of it is not just that building. It's also Park Avenue. Are we closing Park Avenue for sure? Are we closing one lane? Are we taking away the parking spaces right behind the building where the police park now? That's where this building is shown to sit. Now, if we're looking at the 13,500 square foot building, that's taken away some of those things. So there's a lot of things that go into this, not just, hey, we can build this big building, but if you see that Park Avenue is no longer there.
Right.
Right, so.
Right.
There's a lot of decisions.
And they
that have to be
pushed
made
it back
with
and
that.
they've widened Main Street
Street.
and all that. So, I mean, I guess that's where I'm leaning, because I think we need to know what we can put there before we go
But
any
we
further.
We need to know what where is first.
I do think,
There you go.
I
There
do
you
think
go.
we need a
Where-
surveyor
what is
to help
where?
define the boundaries.
What does the
include
survey
the road.
cost? $3,000?
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably for that property.
Yeah.
When I've seen it, like, 1,000, would you like staff to come up with an RFP?
Yep.
Yeah.
And get a proposal, and then as a first step?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna suggest.
Okay, I thought so. I was trying to tell you.
So Pete, there you
Well,
go.
let's start
Survey
out
to
earlier.
define the
We're
property.
saying we need a
That's
survey. Why
exactly
don't
what
you say
I
that?
was looking to see,
Angel on
because
the ear.
On the other side.
the Rails and Trails project, and I bring that up, has been for an ever project, ever since I've been here.
Ah.
But it's moving
next on
along.
the agenda.
It's moving along, I understand that, but
Peter,
But
before we move to
my
Riverhead, I
thing-
just wanted to bring up one thing.
Right.
I understand that, but it's been forever. And I sure would like to see the Flatiron Community Center, and I would like to see it in that spot. Sorry, Bill. I'd like to see that be completed in my lifetime. Thanks.
Not gonna happen, Pete. Well, according to what I heard before, you're already like 150, so.
Yes. Ben and I are going to the
All
same
right.
spot.
Dave, you had one
yeah,
quick thing?
I just wanted to bring up one more. Last month, we talked about funding the fire department, and we had the $60K in the budget that was basically not going to get spent on the resident troopers. I reached out to the fire department this month, or this past month, and they provided me some figures of, I guess, actuals of what their cost of operations have been. They provided me 12-13 money, and then they also provided me 13-14 money. And basically, what I've got here, it's an email. I can forward that to anybody if they would like. But basically, I'm showing a cost, I guess, deficit of money that they've actually pulled out of pocket in the amount of $62,764. Now, I know last month You know, we've talked about 19,000, there were some sort of gray areas, but from what they showed me, the cost of operations for fiscal 12-13 was, they were budgeted by the county for $510,000, and then they actually spent $549,000. So there was about a $38,000 shortfall once the dollars and cents were caught. For 2013-2014, the county has budgeted them $532, and they are expecting to spend about $557,000 for a shortfall of about $24,000. Again, that comes up to be at $62,000. So again, and I'm prepared to make a motion tonight that we move the $60K from line item 01-508-5401, which was the resident trooper program, which was budgeted at $680,000, and move that to line item 01-510-5501, which is the fire company.
Dan, let me suggest you introduce that as, I guess would that be, that would be
Budget amendment.
as a budget, yeah.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask Tom, if I could. Seeing both of these
And that would
are
be an ordinance, and then we vote on it next month.
right, which is my question is, seeing that both of these are under the public safety heading, they do have two different line items, but they're under the same heading, and it does not change the dollar figure of the amount that was budgeted. It's basically sort of like what we just did with the Public Works, where we had money budgeted last year and we moved it forward. Now, granted, that was moving it from one year to the next, so I can see a budget amendment there. My question would be, seeing it's same year money, it's just being transferred within the public safety realm, do we need a budget amendment?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I think previously, it's been a while since I've looked at that issue, but I think I previously said that if you're moving from one line to the next, you're probably best.
I think you stated the ordinance pretty well specifically what you want. I would say,
Yes.
between now and the next meeting, or actually in the next few days, get a number from Debbie.
Okay.
And get it actually drafted.
Okay.
So we will treat it as having been introduced tonight.
Okay.
And the actual, hard draft we'll have on the next thing, and that'll give her a chance to look at everything, and Charlene a chance to determine if that money's really still there.
Are we still in the middle of our audit?
Well, that's what I said, we'll know next
I
month.
can't determine that. I need a good 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, we're too early in the budget
completed
process. We brought this
general
up.
ledger work done.
Yeah, but
I
okay.
cannot look at the budget now and tell you.
Oh, I'm not saying to look now.
Yeah.
What we're saying is it's gonna come back next month. Maybe you'll know then. Let us know what you know then.
She said 3 to 4 months.
Yeah,
You still, from now, you still need a 3 to 4
We won't
months?
get the audit results until mid-October. We won't have 4 completed fiscal periods done in this fiscal year until July, August, September, October, sometime in November.
Yeah, and we had said that before when this was discussed. I thought the council was in agreement that
We're just
we'd like to
waiting
do
for
something.
somebody
But
For
that's
our fire,
good.
let me finish, please. We'd like to do something for the fire department, but let's do this wisely. One, we need to come up with an amount. I'm glad that's been done, and we've had discussions with the fire department as well. Two, we're in the middle of an audit. the budget's not even that old. We need to find out exactly where we are before you start making amendments to move that money around within because we're just not sure yet.
Well, but let me say this, David has introduced it. From my perspective, I think he's introduced it. He always gotta do is get a number. Debbie can even tell us now what that's gonna be, 2013-15, I'm guessing?
I have to check my book.
Right, but so it'll be up for next month, and we can discuss it next month, and we can,
Right, the way we do budget amendments is I do the words, Shar does the figures, and we usually can do those ourselves without
Right.
Tom. Because we keep him,
but David was
And then
very
I bring it
specific
through
on, he
Tom
wants
for
money
him
to
to
move
look
from
at.
this account to this account. He had all that very specific. He'll just give you that in his,
All right, can you call me tomorrow?
Yes.
We'll go through it.
yeah.
Can I, a
And then
couple-
we'll bring it up next month and we'll up it or down it or bump it another month or two.
It's not even on the agenda for tonight.
well, but just to, I mean,
We're introducing that officially, correct?
He's officially introduced it.
so, I mean, just a couple comments. Number one, I think it's I think it's bad practice to verbally introduce a budget amendment with a bunch of facts and figures where we've got absolutely nothing in front of us. I just don't think it's a good way to do business that, hey, you know, I'm going to introduce this budget amendment. You got no facts, no numbers in front of you. Let me read them off and introduce it.
Well, that's what the month's for.
That's what the month's for.
Understood, but,
He's
I mean,
saying
I don't
the
have anything in front of me. I
Normally
can
we
look.
have something in front of us.
Well, I understand.
Number two, and this will be unpopular with the fire department, sorry, but I mean, I think this will be very unpopular with the fire department, but I would like to see audited, the fire department's audited book, so we can look over it and say, okay, here's where the shortfall is. They can't possibly cut or trim any more money, and they need a budget increase, because the town gives 10% of its money, of its tax revenue to the fire department. So from a fiscal responsibility perspective, I understand that they're asking for additional money, and public safety comes first. But I also think from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, we need to be looking at, okay, where the shortfall is.
Is this a continuing
Is it a continuing problem?
one-time
What are we
issue?
looking at in the future? And I can't, my personal position is I won't support a budget amendment such as this unless I can start to see audited results that tell me, okay, here's where the shortfall is. I think it's just, it's responsible on our part before we obligate
When we
taxpayer money.
discussed this back in
We have discussed this
April,
twice, actually.
when we discussed this back in April, everyone sitting at this table was like, sure thing, let's go at it. At no point in time did anybody say, you know, what Councilman Everidge is asking for now. And
That's
my,
not true.
let me try.
They didn't say 60,000.
No, hold on, one second, Scott. Basically, what I asked for was whatever the surplus was, because we were told that there would be a surplus in the state resident trooper program.
Right.
And what I said was, I asked that whatever the surplus was would be moved from the state resident trooper program to the fire department.
You asked that, and nobody here agreed to it. You just made that statement.
No,
and
no,
that
no,
was
no,
how
no,
it was
no,
left.
no, Scott, that's not how it was
Guys,
left.
we can vote on it, so it doesn't.
No, basically what I asked was,
We had discussion of it.
would everybody be willing to do that? And every person at this table basically said, yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think I said, I'm certainly willing to look at it and talk about it then.
Yeah, we
which
said
I'm
we
not
could
sure
I
how to
think
do.
Well, I'd like to go back, well then, let's go back and look at the tape. Let's go back and look at the
Yeah,
tape.
let's go back and look at the, no, well, look, yeah,
let's
I
identify
do
the
think we did say, let's
We
wait
did
and see
say
what the
we
money.
discussed.
David, this might solve the questions that we've had here,
Need a bigger pen.
and I'll leave it up to you. You can you can sit down with Debbie and you can draft it up nice,
Right.
and introduce it next month. And then that would bring it up for a vote in November, which would make it far more likely that Charlene's got her final numbers. And that would also solve the problem of it goes through the actual going on the agenda process.
That's
And that
fine.
should give everybody plenty of time to look up and find anything they want.
Again, I was, you know, yes, I made the motion,
All
but
right.
yes, I'm willing to sit
Okay.
down,
So Debbie,
write it up, we'll
Tom,
introduce it next month.
Get this all structured the way he wants it. We will introduce it, he's gonna introduce it next month. And so it'll come up for a vote in November, which will hopefully maybe give us at least closer to our budget time. We'll know then.
We'll have 3 fiscal periods done, and the audit should be ready.
So that'll give us a lot more detail. Chris?
So, yeah, Dave, I think there's a subsequent meeting to, yeah, you first mentioned the idea, and everybody said, yeah, that's a great idea. And then subsequent, another meeting, I think I brought up the fact that, you know what, let me go back to your original idea. It was thrown out. Frankly, I felt blindsided by it, and I said, yeah, I'll go along with it, because politically, you can't go against, politically, going against public safety is a bad thing. So, I mean, that's why I didn't say anything at the time. So hence, my reservations are now on the table. I would suggest, or at least my request for your budget amendment here, is we also come back with audited books from the fire department, so we can identify, as Scott's already said as well, we identify where the shortfalls are. The shortfall's gonna be systematic. Is there any place they can cut? Because again, from a fiscal responsibility perspective, I mean, we're dealing with taxpayers' money. before we obligate taxpayers' money, I'm going to ask to look to see why we're obligating it and where we're going with it.
That's just good, that's just
Well,
good business, that's,
that's all.
You have to quantify it. And if I could, just as a lead on this in my mayor's report, I'll just get out there now. Councilman King and Councilman Everett and I have been meeting with the fire department in regards to the equitable funding from Frederick County Commissioners. We met with Commissioner Blaine Young, we've met with the fire chief, we've met with the fire board, and we're diligently working. We have another meeting at their next board meeting to see about getting some equitable contributions back from Frederick County, getting the money where it's supposed to be. So we are working that avenue as well.
And I assume when this comes up, since the fire company knows, they'll probably have somebody here to answer any questions. we
Yeah,
may
the actual
have.
amount was closer, I think.
Bruce is
30%
hiding back
shortfall.
there.
Let me begin by saying.
Now you called him out.
Bruce Walls, First Vice President, Mount Airy Fire Company. We, of course, are appreciative of the town's efforts to support the fire company, and we're always willing to take your money. But we have to look at this realistically as to what the burden will be upon the volunteers. We do have to oversee the operation of our paid personnel, and that's putting extreme amount of work on our financial people as such. And so also I point out that we are a private corporation, and so we do have private holdings of funds, and we also have government funds for which we're responsible. And in the past, all audits have been for the government funds and how they are used. So I just make that stipulation as far as the depth and breadth of the audit that you might
I don't
request.
think we want to know your stocks.
Right. Well, you don't know, well, you know where we have property,
financial
but you won't let us do what we want with that, but anyway.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. All right. Next on the agenda, sale agreement between Shyman Properties and the town of Mount Airy regarding rails to trails. This is the next chunk. I will move that we accept the agreement of sale. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Tom, do you want to give us any briefing?
No, I mean, basically, the terms are, as we had discussed previously, it would be an outright purchase of the of a portion of the property. Now, some work needs to be done. Obviously, we need to get it subdivided because we're only purchasing a portion of what is right now a unified parcel. And, of course, the usual things that I'm going to recommend we do with other purchases, and that is environmental phase one as well to be done.
Contingent upon purchase?
Yeah, the agreement as written is it is voidable by both sides if we cannot come to an agreement on the exact boundaries.
Okay.
Because we do need a survey to lay that out. Obviously, that's part of the process that we'll need to go through anyway to subdivide it. And number two, it is certainly voidable up until closing by the town for any reason at all, but most especially the results of any environmental testing, certainly a title search, if there might be concerns that there are easements crossing the area that we need, and we can't get subordination agreements, things of that sort. So, it is voidable by the town up till closing.
All right, this comes under parks. What's our funding source for all that?
Land acquisition, isn't it, of course?
Well, it'd have to be,
For the purchase itself, money was put in this year's budget, for the purchase, depending on how much it is. Because there's a certain amount, there was $105,000 in the rails to trails line, $45,000 of that was for land acquisition. Surveys, accounted for $10,000.
Okay.
But that was intended for the Frederick County property.
The CSX line on that side of town.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm hearing from Tom is that we need to do environmental studies on this property and surveys on the property, and I'm just saying, we've got the purchase price funding for the property in the budget. Where's the rest of this coming from? So I just want to make sure we have that set, so I'm going to vote for this.
Charlene, I'm sorry, could you reach out to Roberta and determine whether the land acquisition account could be used for environmental testing, surveying in association with the purchase of land.
Anything involved in the purchase of land could count. And you do have money budgeted for this type of
Surveys.
thing.
Okay,
in
well, it
that-
sounds like it sounds like if we got 40,000 in the budget,
Yeah.
then when you put it with this, we should have enough money to cover all that then.
Okay, but.
Okay, all right, that was all I really needed to know.
And we did get an estimate from the engineer that,
That's how, did you have more?
Well, I just wanted to say that the 45,000 wasn't only for the Shyman property. So
Right.
if we do go along with other properties, the issue as far as funding for additional land acquisition will come up, and you will need.
We may have to add more money in
Okay,
that, yeah.
because 45,000 was for all of it.
Right.
So if we take now,
But we've also got reserve funds for this that are specifically for
right, but
things
they're
like
not
that.
budgeted.
They're not budgeted, right, but I mean, it's really, if you come back here and say, you've got reserve money to buy Rails to Trails property, here's a contract, move your reserve money over, I think we're all gonna say, oh, okay. We've been saving it for years, that's what it's for, let's use it.
but our reserve money is,
Our fee in lieu.
Yeah.
And that is not as plentiful, but we
Correct.
we have land acquisition.
right, which is, is
Um,
was that the Frederick County side monies?
Well, we have two. We
Right.
have two. So we have money, but the only money we have budgeted for land acquisition
Gotcha.
is your 45,000.
So
we're good on this
And
We're good on this one, we may not be good on the next one.
that's my only point.
That's fine,
Okay.
okay. Any other discussion on this? All in favor of accepting this agreement of sale to purchase the Shyman property, say aye. Aye. Unanimous? Scott seconded that. All right. Pete, there you go. Our second our second authorization, at least on the purchase over there.
Great.
So we're moving
We're
down
getting
the
there.
trail a few feet at a time.
Yeah, I'm sure Larry Hushhour couldn't be here
Larry
this evening,
Hushhour.
but I know he appreciates it. The gentleman in the back's been working very hard.
Yes,
Jay-
working with Larry, thank you.
Jay's been working very hard, and this is
Fighting
gonna
the
come, it's
bees.
gonna happen.
Purchase of a wheel loader. Okay, that's up next.
Sorry, budget.
We have the budget item, we are coming in under the budget item.
One question.
Yes.
Should we be buying American?
Really?
Yeah.
What's American?
It's just
Every part is outsourced, so.
Well, actually, I will say this, our guys tried out, we discussed this, they tried out multiple units. The cheapest one, they thought was the best one.
Well, it's not the cheapest.
I'd like to
That's
call
the middle was the
Councilman
cheapest.
Everett drives an Acura. I'm sorry.
That'll be on my financial disclosure form.
Oh, you're right, the number two one, not quite the cheapest, but the almost.
We always look to buy local, I can tell you that. We always do, but we don't always go with, if the local's higher, we don't.
Yeah,
always
they're
go.
buying it from Mid-Atlantic Machinery.
And
It can't be too far away.
If it were very close, we probably would.
But
That
yeah,
would be
actually,
competitive.
which one's, I guess the only one that would, arguably Caterpillar would be.
Caterpillar is American.
Yeah. And I will disclose, because I didn't even think about it, because it says Albin on here, but Caterpillar, my law firm has done work over the years for Caterpillar Finance, but since I'm not voting for them,
I make parts.
I'm voting for the other one, I don't think it's conflict. I've never
As
done
long
work
as
for
you put this
Mid-Atlantic
on
or
your,
Komatsu.
on your disclosure form.
Well, I can't disclose anybody, that would be impossible for me to disclose every client my law firm's ever worked for. There's just no possible way I
Well,
could.
this was provided by staff. You had
Yeah.
no.
I have no input on
into
this,
it.
and I'm not actually voting even for the one
I'll
that.
move we accept staff
Yeah.
recommendation.
Got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Supplemental letter of agreement between the town and SHA regarding salt. We've done this one before.
Yeah, it's like
It's
every year.
renewed, the supplemental's renewed annually.
one
Some of the numbers are a little different, lower actually.
Number went down, it's good.
Sorry, one question.
This is our strategic arms limitation treaty with the state. We agree not to have nukes as long as the state agrees not to have them.
Is Brett authorized to commit the town? The way it's written is Brett signs it? Brett Ashburn, staff representative, but really,
Well.
isn't this committing the town?
Yes.
Shouldn't be.
It should be the mayor.
Shouldn't the mayor sign it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it should read mayor.
Thank you.
Executive authority.
Was there a
So-
second?
so short of making the change for the mayor.
Did you move,
I'll move that we accept the agreement as written
except with mayor on the back?
with the exception,
Second with
with the
the
change
change.
that the mayor
We
signs.
got a
up
second
there.
on that. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. So that's council
That-
approval to sign.
You vote yeah, aye, Bob? Was that,
Yeah.
okay, that was unanimous. Bob was the only one that didn't say. All right. On to our mayor and council reports.
Okay, I'm
Mr.
going
Mayor.
to try to go through this. Keep in mind, this report will also run in the Mount Airy Messenger. It'll be in print on our website. School's back in session. I ask everybody, please be safe around the bus stops. If students need student learning hours, please contact me. We have a list. Citizen outreach, in addition to starting public filming back in 2006, an incentive started by Mayor Frank Johnson. We've also increased our outreach considerably. We now have a Facebook page. We have an emergency notification system. Thanks to Councilman Strong, we've updated our website. I don't know if I said
We have
Facebook
Twitter
page.
now. I saw the word
Well,
on
you're
Twitter this
blowing-
morning.
This is, just one second. As of Tuesday, September 10th, let me be mayor at the table. Tuesday, September 10th, we're going to have an official Twitter account. We'll be launching tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Putting out the first message, right?
Yes, I'll be doing the first tweet tomorrow. There's also going to be a list of all our different sources of outreach. I am wearing pink tonight. I want everybody to know that. I'm wearing a pin. There's a reason why I'm wearing pink tonight. I'm wearing it next month. It's because to prepare for the annual Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October, I want to give everybody a heads up. We're having our third annual Making Stride for Breast Cancer Walk on Sunday, October 20th. I'd like to encourage people to maybe start their own team. I'll let you know, as far as starting a team, you get a group of people together, you go to the website, you come up with some kind of wacky theme. I know Dr. O'Brien, your wife is very involved and you are a contributor, we appreciate that. But giving everybody a heads up that they should get involved, maybe start their own team, come up with a theme, go to the website, and let's help put this dreaded disease out of our memories and find a cure. MAMSA History 101, that's already been presented tonight. I will not do that again. I also have a detailed listing of what the town is in negotiations with the Harrison Leisure property. I will not read it. It'll be on the town website, but we are in negotiations with the town, with the county for Harrison Leisure. This is just to see if there's interest enough to move forward with the contract. If there is, then it will go to public hearing. Details again are listed here. This is not the first time I've listed it in 2 other mayor's reports. So it's out there. There are no secret meetings. We're very open and transparent that we are dealing with the county for a potential opportunity out there. We have 2 new volunteers at Town Hall. You will be hearing a lot from Tyler Graham. He's serving as a mayoral intern. His desire to serve the community will complement the goals of the mayor's office and all of us that serve the town. Tyler is a senior at Ligonor High School. He's the current president of the Frederick County Association of Student Councils. He's first Ligonor student president. Let me see. Oh, he's the first Ligonor student Mount Airy resident to hold that office. He moved to Mount Airy in 2001. He is the former class president of Ligonor High School. He was an intern for the United States Department of Energy, and he is a 2-time delegate to the Maryland Association of Student Councils in Ocean City. For those of you who haven't met Tyler, he is on fire.
Impressive young man.
He is quite impressive, so he's doing a lot. He's helping me get a lot accomplished for the town. We also have another impressive young man, Austin Comfort. Many people in town know Austin. He is a dedicated volunteer working with our community development team in Town Hall. Austin has been a huge help with the typing notes, making flyers, whatever else needs to be done. He's a South Carroll High graduate. He's a member of the Frederick Civitan Club, and he in the Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Company. He's worked at Scripps Sports and Main Streets for 4 years. Everybody knows him on a personal level. He's very dedicated, and again, this is part of our volunteer corps that we introduced a while ago. Gems of Mount Airy. This is not a store this time. This is a rare opportunity to visit a property down on Prospect Street. Again, it's written up here. This is written up by Tyler. It's Choo Choo. Mount Airy has a rich train history with the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad formerly providing service to the town. Even the town's name purportedly comes from a railroad worker joking about how cold it was. Although passenger trains do not currently run through town, you can experience a slice of the town's fascinating railroad history at the Raines family-owned Whistle Stop Railroad. It's in their backyard. The Raines family has managed to create a one-of-a-kind train wonderland. In addition to their amazing train world and a Cal Ripken replica, the little ones can ride a train, and they can see everything that is controlled via a big control caboose. The train station will be open during Fall Fest weekend, Saturday, October 21st. It is right next to the Twin Ridge soccer field.
That's one on Prospect, right?
Yes, it is.
That's neat
So
to
I
go see.
encourage everyone out there, adults, kids, bring your kids down there. This is, what you'll see is going to just blow you away. So please take advantage of that on October 21st. It is a gem in Mount Airy. We'll have a mayor's forum on September 21st. Everybody's encouraged to drop by, 10 to 12. Volunteer opportunities are still available. Visit the website. MAMSA is looking for volunteers. MAMSA is involved in several exciting programs focused on our historical downtown Mount Airy. Programs include chili cook-off, cornhole competition, farmers market, a Main Street Christmas, and more. Visit their website, mountairymainstreet.org, or contact Ellie Bondi. They need some help, and what they do for the town is fantastic. If you want to have an enriching experience, join up with them. That concludes my mayor's report, and I have some appointments.
Right here.
Thank you.
See, it did end up being your copy.
We share. Let me see. I am recommending Dick Swanson.
He was surprised by that.
I'm going to do it all at one time. Dick Swanson for Ethics, Jimmy Litton for EDC, Ken Humble for Recycling. These are all reappointments. And I'm also looking to appoint Mary Ann Gaver. If I pronounce that right.
Yes, you got it
Mary Ann,
right.
Thank you. To the Beautification Commission.
I will move that we accept the mayor's recommendations. Got a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Everybody here, Chris is not in attendance. Chris had to step out and take a phone call.
Sorry.
But I'm sure he does not mind me moving the meeting forward. Go for it.
He's back.
Chris, we approved the mayor's recommendations without you. I was sure you didn't mind.
Sorry.
All right, Sanitation, Recycling, and Arts Council. That's not a combination.
Okay, we submitted our master plan information and goals to the Planning Commission for Chapter 6. We've implemented a plan for the users of the downtown trash and recycling center to keep the center clean and presentable at all times. We'll probably be coming back and asking for a security camera here soon. We're still having a problem with somebody unlocking the facility and leaving it unlocked on the weekends. But we've gone from 2 dumps to 3 dumps in a week there to try to provide better service. The next meeting is on Wednesday, September the 18th, 7 p.m. at Town Hall. Mr. Ballas will be in attendance. The Mount Airy Arts Council at the most recent show, Expressions of Summer, was very successful. The Arts Council opened Town Hall every Saturday from 11 to 3 to allow viewing of the show, which was hung in the hallway from July 20th through August the 17th. The Downtown Saturday Night Concert Series, which is 5 concerts in the courtyard next to Town Hall, was very well attended. Approximately 50 people at each of the performances by local artists. The genres varied from classical to bluegrass. The Arts Council will be holding its first fundraiser on Sunday, September 29th, 1 to 5 at Lorienzo's Brick Oven Cafe. 12 artists will be displaying their work and be on hand to meet and greet. Tickets are $25 if purchased beforehand, $30 at the door. Tickets can be purchased at Firehouse Pottery or through Terry or Bob King. Don't miss this opportunity to support the Mount Airy Arts Council. Tickets are going fast. The Arts Council is also planning a field trip to Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Waters in Pennsylvania this coming October. There they will sketch, paint, and photograph everything
Oh,
that
I want
doesn't
to go to that.
everything that doesn't move.
That's your wife.
Yeah. The next meeting's on Wednesday, September the 11th at 7:30 p.m. at 2 Town Hall. We got 2 other things I want to mention. On September 26th, we have our Town Appreciation Event for all the staffers and all of you guys that held your hands up earlier.
I can
That's you
cross
guys.
that off my things to mention. Thanks, Bob.
Right. Oh, was that one of your
That's
things?
what it does.
I'm
Fun
sorry.
one gets mentioned. It wasn't, I didn't see it on the list, so I wrote it into mine.
Right. And the civility class will be November the
5:30
18th.
Watkins Park.
Yes, 5:30 at Watkins Park.
For the-
Thursday,
for the
September the
appreciation dinner.
26th.
They need to RSVP.
Oh, we need to RSVP by the 16th, was it?
No.
Do it soon.
Yeah, as soon as
Just
possible.
take care of it.
Yes.
Either to Debbie or Katie. And our civility class is on November the 18th from 7 to 9:30. Mr. Ballas will be in attendance for that also. And that is my report.
All right, Pat, you had one thing you wanted to...
Keep going, keep
Okay,
going.
all right, Parks and Rec beautification.
Okay. Beautification Commission, basically, we went down all of the parks and went over the basic status of what was going on. The Beautification Commission is looking for volunteers to help out with general cleanup, and we're also looking for any Boy Scouts that are looking for Eagle projects, to come and approach us. We actually have a long list of projects that you can help out. You have options of either beautification or Parks and Rec to do those Eagle Scout projects. And you can contact Town Hall to get a hold of Mary Hushauer, who is the liaison chair. And I do not have a report from Parks and Rec.
All right, planning, EDC.
Planning EDC, thank you. I'll make it very quick. Planning had its meeting on the 26th. We had a few sign approvals, discussed the wrapping up the rest of the master plan. So Heather's working on that now with all the public hearings, everything else. 2 meetings to note. September workshop will be 9/16 at 7 p.m. and the next meeting for P&Z will be 9:30 at 7 p.m. Both are in Town Hall. As far as EDC had its meeting on the 20th. They decided to do it off-site and do it at the tavern. We learned a lot of information from Westminster. They showed up and actually discussed their plans for running fiber all over Carroll County and talking to us about how we could potentially tap into that for use for the municipality. So that was an interesting discussion. Mr. King was there as well as Mr. Butts. So I think we learned some good stuff from them. They're going to come forward with more about cost and timeframes and all that good stuff. We also discussed some new business, old business type things, what's going on with Superfresh, yada yada. Next meeting for EDC is going to be 9/25. That's it.
All right. Streets and roads. For those of you who don't know, we're working on an every month schedule now. So we did meet in August. We'll meet again October 24th. Things are moving forward down on Buffalo as far as our new speed changing things, painting lines, and all kinds of things to try and slow traffic down coming into Buffalo, as well as the sign flashers with speeds and everything else are being moved around town. Down here in the downtown, if you take a look around, SHA has begun their work turning the downtown into a nicer, more walkable plaza, more handicapped accessible. Probably in just the next few days, they'll start on the new crosswalk here. I was actually talking to the SHA guys out there with the blueprints today who were working on the little peninsula. If you'll see all the paint marks and everything where it's going. So by this time next month, you should see a substantially different downtown. You see the tear-ups down in front of Conchetta's and Crying Johnny's. And they're going to move next up to this side of the street over here, right across from Town Hall, making that all handicapped accessible and then working everything. So there's a lot going on, particularly on the streets right down here in the downtown right now. Our next meeting, as I said, will be October 24th. Don't speed, stop completely at stop signs. Water and Sewer Commission.
Water and Sewer's been working on the fog ordinance that was introduced tonight. We'll be able to vote on it next month. And again, in response to some of the problems we've had in town. The mayor, also Chris Spar, who spoke tonight, gave us some additional information on flush tax, rain tax. So, we'd like, and Chris also spoke to the commission. So, again, it was good to have Chris here tonight to give the council some information and some opinions on that may be somewhat different from what we've heard before. Finally, the mayor asked the Water and Sewer Commission to take a look at the rain barrel and the idea of, do we do more rain barrels? The Water Commission's position is, of course, to encourage conservation, but it took no position on rain barrels and/or subsidies. It just didn't have any opinion. And we're always looking for new members.
Sorry I missed that.
All right, Town Administrator report. Monica.
I just have a couple of things. Our sidewalk project's in play now. Our water line will be finished. I asked Barney this afternoon in about 30 days.
Well, the water line is finished, the paving is not.
Yeah, the paving's not. So our sidewalk project right now is a state highway administration project, so they are coordinating with the contractor primarily, and Barney is kind of the liaison in between the two parties, in case there's any issues. Also, we're gonna have an 9/11 ceremony at the Capitol this week.
It's 7 o'clock, I think,
I
correct?
thought it was 7, yeah. You know, that's what
It is at 7 o'clock. In fact, there was a few things I left off of my mayor's report, so
Oh, well.
I'll go back.
Is that it, Monica? All right, thanks.
There's a break thing.
Peter, one thing I forgot to ask, again, putting Barney on the spot, status of, because I'm going to ask this every month until we get out of it, status of the consent agreement, status of MDE, and have they commented on our water allocation plan?
And the answer is the same as last month. We haven't gotten the official word on that yet.
But can we show documentation where we've reached out? Can you just let us see copies that you're reaching out? I understand.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I understand you can't control them, but we can control us. Let's make sure that even if we have to send a letter once a week, let's do so.
Yeah.
You can send the same letter, just hit send.
Yeah, I mean, how many, I think we're going on to, what, at least 4 months, if not 5?
Pine,
4 months. I mean, how long does it take
Pine
MD to
Chop.
make a decision? This is, I know, they're busy trying to figure out how to brain tax us to death.
Councilman, if I could,
I figure out how they can find out what stock's going on.
there was something I left off the report.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, Memento bricks from the Mount Airy High/Middle School that is being torn down will be sold by the Mount Airy Historical Society for $5 apiece. Now, this is in conjunction with History 101. They wanted to launch this. There's also a group that's headed up by a very beautiful Mary Beth Rook, who will be engraving the bricks.
She's not here.
She'll see it on TV, though. They will be engraving.
Hope she's got better things to do.
That will be engraving the bricks and numbering them and selling them for $15 a piece. They have the logo of the bulldog, so there's a lot of people in this community. Her mother was part of the first graduating class, and her herself has gone through 3 generations. And there's many people in that area just like that that have gone through several generations of that school. So Pete can give you a version for $5, or you can get an engraved version. You can reach Pete Ballas at 301-829-3910, and you can reach Mary Beth Rook at marybeth.ruchrook@gmail.com if you're interested in these bricks, and these will also be in the messenger.
In fact, you can come to the museum every Saturday until December the 14th.
Every Saturday till December the 14th to pick up your $5 brick. And again, you have 2 options, $5 for a brick, $15 for an engraved brick that's numbered.
You're not going to sell them during the council meeting, right? Just in case people are.
I'll sell them anywhere.
We don't want them to be
We don't want them.
Hey, get your bricks, get your hot bricks right here.
Right before the meeting starts.
Oh, good point, Councilman.
Tom? Attorney report.
Over the last month, been working on, of course, the ordinances and charter revisions that appeared on tonight's agenda. On another part of Rails to Trails, we're sort of finalizing a formal written contract along the same lines as we previously discussed for Town View. Just waiting for 1 or 2 questions I need to get answered. But I should have that into Town View's hands in the coming days. On Harrison Lashir, I did check in with IDA's counsel. He did apologize. He's been delayed in getting to the latest round of documents. But he did want to have me report that they did close today, as a matter of fact, on the purchase of the residence at the corner of 27 and I guess that's West Watersville.
That's to give them more direct water
To
pipeline.
give a more direct access.
Yeah, that'll save money in getting them a direct line.
Yeah. And that's it.
All right. We've got a closed meeting set now. On here it reads legal advice, and it says Sakura matter. Should we have purchase of real property and discuss Town View? Is there anything in Town View needs to be discussed in that?
No.
Okay.
My anticipation would be that they would first have to sign the contract.
Okay. I just want to make sure when I make that motion, I don't need to throw that checkbox
No, it would
out.
then have to come to this body for approval,
Okay.
authorizing the mayor to sign it, and then you would have a contract.
Okay. And Debbie, I'm gonna need a sheet for the closed meeting.
Got it.
Okay.
So is there anything like you just discussed?
No, we're not putting it on. I just wanted to double check that we didn't need to, yeah, I just need to double check, whether we need to check that box on the form. You said no. Okay, we got the code enforcement report. Is there any other business? I don't hear any. I'll move the bills be paid. Do I have a second? Second from Scott. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I will move that we go into a closed session to discuss,
Yeah, it's the police officer.
well, I don't know if that's a closed session issue. I mean, I just don't, closed session issue,
Agenda.
well, just, I know, but I'm looking for which box I need to check here. Is
Oh,
it
it's for the,
to consult counsel on legal matters, it's number 7.
Yeah, attorney,
Okay.
7.
Right, yeah, it's number 7, to, close meeting for the purpose to consult with, legal counsel, and as part of that motion, that when we're done with that closed meeting, we are adjourned. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Chris.
Didn't get a chance to-
Hell, aye, Blaze.
Aye.
Thanks a lot.
Everidge.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Strong.
Aye.
All right, we are in closed session.
Back to you, Tony.